Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations is one of my personal favorite games of all time. It's the third and final game in the original Phoenix Wright trilogy, and in my opinion, it does a damn near perfect job of concluding everything, from the overarching plot to the individual character arcs. So, why is there a fourth game? I don't know, let's ask Capcom. Hi, I'm Mr. Capcom. The reason why we had Shu Takumi,
the creator and lead director / writer of the series,
make a fourth Ace Attorney game is because we wanted to make more money. But Ace Attorney is a relatively niche franchise that doesn't make you guys as much money. And that's all. We won't be taking any further questions. You heard the man. For one reason or another, Capcom wanted more funny gay lawyer games, so Shu Takumi said, okay, but it'll be about a new character since Phoenix's story is done. Wonderful. It's great that Capcom's respecting the series' creators' wish to have the protagonist with the finished character arc not return. Now, you may be thinking, this game is bad, right? I mean, it's a forced sequel to a franchise that was supposed to be over and done with, so it must suck. Well, no, actually. Despite what some may tell you, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney is a good game, it's just not without its flaws. And you also might be thinking, what the fuck were you wearing on your shirt in that little intro segment skit thingy you did? Well, it's this, Apollo Justice pin that Ren, frequent collaborator on the channel, got me a little while back. I figured I'd put it to use and wear it in a video, especially since it's very topical, but you can't really see it in the intro skit, so that kind of defeated the purpose of it. Here's how this review will work. I'll go by a, well, literal case-by-case basis, talking about the individual cases from the game, delivering my opinions on them. Oh yeah, this video will contain massive spoilers, by the way. Then I'll talk about my likes and dislikes not related to the individual cases, such as the art and music, before delivering a final review score. I'll get into talking about the cases in a second, but first, please consider liking, sharing, and especially subscribing. It's my goal to hit 1K by the end of this year, and if you could help me out, it would mean so much to me. Plus, by turning my post notifications on, you'll be able to see when I upload my video about the next game in the franchise. Also, feel free to comment your personal thoughts on this game and tell me what your favorite case is. But without any further ado. Case 1, Turnabout Trump. What? Oh, come on, you can't just name a case Turnabout Trump and not expect me to make the most obvious joke about it. Not only is this the first case of the game, but it's also the first case to feature our new main character, Apollo Justice. So yeah, I should mention that this is Apollo's first ever trial, and in typical Ace Attorney fashion, it's a homicide case, because what else would someone be on trial for? Unsurprisingly, Apollo is nervous, given how he is trying to defend someone against a murder charge in his very first trial, but not to worry. Here to comfort him is Christoph Gavin, his mentor. So Christoph is like, hey, don't worry, you're only defending a lifelong friend of mine in a case that we can't afford to lose. Thanks, Christoph. As of now, we know 3 things about Apollo. He's nervous, but he's fine, and he apparently does a cords of steel workout every morning. What's that, you may ask? Good question. I have no idea, and I have now played this entire trilogy. But enough about old Justice over here. Let's meet the defendant of this case. Hey, wait a minute, this guy seems familiar. So yeah, remember how I said that Shu Takumi wasn't bringing Phoenix back? Well, I lied. Sort of. You see, Takumi really didn't want to bring Phoenix back, I was being honest about that. What I didn't mention was that Capcom went, hey, you know how you wanted the new game to have a new protagonist? Well, we actually still want you to bring Phoenix back, And so Shu Takumi went, okay, and brought him back. And made him homeless, took away his attorney's badge, and had him accused of murder in the first few minutes of the game. Power move, honestly. Oh, also, given how this is the game's tutorial case, Payne is the prosecutor, whoa! Back to the game, though. Phoenix has been accused of murdering a man by the name of Shady Smith during a game of poker. Yes, I fucking love gambling! At a restaurant called the Borscht Bull Club. The reason why he's a suspect is because, 1, he was the only person present in the room that wasn't the waitress or, you know, the victim, and 2, his fingerprints were found on the murder weapon, a bottle of grape juice. Huh. Obviously, Phoenix is not the actual culprit, rather he's a mere piano player at the restaurant.
even though he can't play piano.
So it's up to us to defend him. And defend him we do, leading to Christoph being found guilty of the murder. You know, the mentor of Apollo and the guy that assisted him throughout most of the trial. So yeah, in a crazy turn of events, Christoph makes a grave slip-up while discussing the events of the case. A slip-up that paints him as the murderer. He takes the stand to defend himself, but after he's proven wrong time and time again, and a mysterious girl gives us evidence, yeah, that cannot be legal, his nice and well-mannered facade cracks and cracks until he reaches his breaking point. God, it was so nostalgic seeing another Colbert breakdown after such a long time. All in all, Case 1 of Apollo Justice does a good job of making your introduction to the game actually feel natural instead of stiff and tutorial-like, and does a great job of introducing the new mechanics, such as the 3D gimmicks and Apollo's ability to perceive witnesses and detect their nervous habits. The aforementioned twist that it provides is pretty damn cool too. The case isn't flawless though. For one, it feels sort of like it sets up the game's overarching mystery a little too early. I mean, the whole plotline between Phoenix and Kristoff doesn't really become relevant again until the final case of the game, and it also feels like there could have been a case before this to ease you into the game prior to setting up such a crazy storyline. On the other hand though, I can see why the writing team went in this direction, given how they probably felt that it was necessary to have a really promising start to a game most people were probably on the fence about. The other major flaw though is that this case starts up an issue that is annoyingly present throughout the Apollo Justice trilogy. That issue being that the series is actually too afraid to make Apollo the new protagonist, and gives Phoenix the spotlight constantly. It's very present in the latter half of this case, in which Phoenix, who is supposed to be on trial for murder, pretty much takes the lead role back to fight against Kristoff. But despite my problems with Turnabout Trump, it's still, overall, a pretty great case that gets you excited to play more of the game. 8 out of 10. Apollo is left in a really interesting place after the first trial, both literally and figuratively. Because he got his previous boss, arrested for murder, he would have been without a job, but luckily Phoenix took him in under his wing. Now, you may be asking, isn't Phoenix no longer a lawyer? Yes. You see, Phoenix didn't take Apollo in to work at the Wright & Co. law offices, he took him in to work at the Wright Talent Agency, a talent agency consisting of only himself and one other person. And that's the interesting physical place he's in. I'm just saying that so you get, the joke I made earlier. And now you may be asking, who's the other person at the agency? Okay, first of all, you have so many fucking questions. And second of all, the mysterious girl from the previous trial. She's revealed to be Trucy Wright, Phoenix's adopted daughter. Yeah, if you couldn't already tell, a lot happened during the 7 in-game years between trials and tribulations in this game. All you need to know for now, though, is that Phoenix and Trucy turned the law office into a talent agency after Phoenix got his badge taken away, and Apollo has essentially been tricked into joining the agency. Anyways, let's meet Trucy. Like I said, she's Phoenix's adopted daughter / co-worker, but she's also a third secret thing, a magician. And she's also so fucking adorable, oh my god. After talking to Trucy for a little while, we find out that Phoenix was hit by a car and is currently hospitalized, so we rush to the hospital and... Seriously? No, seriously, out of all the fucking characters you could bring back, fucking Christ. After an extremely uncomfortable conversation with director Hottie / Hickfield, yeah, keep in mind Trucy is 15, like 15 years old, as in underage. They should have called this motherfucker Dr. Disrespect. He eventually fucks off and we talk to Phoenix and find out that... okay, this might actually be one of the funniest moments in the game. Basically, a hit-and-run driver sent Phoenix flying 30 fucking feet into a telephone pole and he just walked it off, just a casual everyday thing. The only reason he's in the hospital now is because of a sprained ankle, but he still wants Apollo to find the driver to test his investigative abilities. Once we get back to the law office, we're met with another client, Gael Dune, victim of, noodle stand theft. But he's not the only victim of theft, so is Trucy, who's had her panties stolen. Shu Takumi, I love you and I love this series, I really do. Why the fuck are you so weird with characters that are minors? To be fair, the stolen panties end up being Trucy's magic panties, a fake pair of bloomers she uses for tricks, but I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that I think this case would be better if half of the first investigation day wasn't spent talking about a 15-year-old's missing panties. Just a thought, though. Now, Apollo has been tasked with dealing with 3 requests, and none of which involve defending, which is his, job. That is, until a young woman named Alita Tiala comes in, asking Apollo to defend her fiancé, Waki Kataki, who has been accused of murder. So we move out to investigate the scene where 2 important events occur. 1, we meet this game's main prosecutor, Clavier Gavin, the younger brother of Christoph Gavin, the guy who we, got arrested for murder last time. Aside from being a prosecutor, Clavier is 3 other things: a rockin' guitarist, a motorcyclist, and a bisexual who wants to fuck Apollo. This is literally the first interaction between them, dude. They're so gay. Anyways, we talked to him for a bit, and then the second most important event occurred. Emma! That's right, baby. Emma Skye from the 5th case of the first game is back, and in the years between her appearance in that case and her appearance in this game, she's transformed from an eager, energetic girl who loves science to a depressed, disgruntled, and just generally pissed off detective, which is probably the most realistic character transformation in the series. Don't worry, she still has a knack for science, though. Moving on, we find out that the murder Walkie is currently under investigation for is the murder of a doctor named Pal Maratkis, and oh yeah, I guess we should meet him. Oh my god, this dude is a total himbo idiot. He's my boyfriend. Mine! There's a lot to like about Case 2 of Apollo Justice. Most notably, it does a good job of reintroducing both Emma and, as a result of her return, the forensic science elements from Game 1 Case 5. Which, in case you don't remember the backstory behind it, that case was added into the DS port of the first game after the original trilogy had already been completed, meaning that Emma and her puzzles would not appear for the rest of the trilogy. This made seeing them again even better, especially since this game introduced new twists to the formula. For example, this case introduces the ability to examine and match footprints, which... I won't laugh. Seriously though, the new footprint matching mechanic is really cool. No, stay away! What's also great about this case though, is that most of the new and returning characters, barring some, are great, and the story is really interesting, especially when it comes to the twist villain being revealed, who's none other than Alida Tiala, who framed Walkie in order to get his money. Oh, also, if you're wondering what happened with the other 3 plotlines, Wesley had stolen Trucy's magic prop, and the victim, Pal Maratkis, was the hit-and-run driver and had attempted to steal the noodle stand before being killed. The case isn't without its flaws, though. Hottie and Wesley are both creepy characters that are uncomfortable in nearly every scene they're in. The whole Panny storyline started out weird. The attempt to connect the 4 investigations together is a bit weird, and as cool of a villain as Alida was, she does kinda just feel like a Dahlia Hawthorne ripoff. Not to mention, this is one of the cases where the flaws of the localization are very present. Like, you're telling me that there is a massive Japanese crime syndicate in Cali? But Turnabout Corner is still a pretty good case, and I'll award it with a 7 out of 10. There are other great aspects of it that I didn't mention in my semi-brief summary of the case. For example, the story of the Kitaki crime syndicate was really nice, and while we're on that topic, hey Walkie, are you free later? I could be your new fiance. Turnabout Serenade sees a massive nosedive in quality for Apollo Justice, and in typical third case fashion, proves to be the worst one in the game. And by a large margin too. Let's get into why that is. So this case starts out with a concert, which, That shit looks like ass. Remember when I was talking about the last case and I said that Prosecutor Clavier was also a guitarist? Well, I wasn't kidding. This case sees Apollo and Trucy attending one of the concerts of his band, the Gaviners, for which he is the vocalist and rhythm guitarist. Prior to the second act of this concert, Apollo and Trucy meet Lamuror and Machi, a singer and blind pianist, respectively, who are set to perform on stage with the Gaviners during said set. Also, no, I am not singling out Machi's disability for no reason, trust me, it gets important later on. They also meet Romain Latouche, Lamuror's manager, but he's killed during the third set, so it doesn't really matter. Now, notice that I didn't say Latouche died, I said he was killed. So, obviously, a suspect is pinned for the crime. And who is it, you may ask? An audience member? One of the band members? Emma, who's on security detail at the concert? No, the police apprehend Machi.
You know, the 14-year-old blind boy whose only connection to the crime was being found unconscious next to the victim? Did it not occur to the police that, I don't know, one of the probably hundreds of concert goers could have snuck backstage and done it? I mean, I guess the police arresting a little disabled boy is realistic, but I don't really think that was the intent. Anyways, to get to the bottom of the case, we gotta investigate. During our investigation, we end up meeting two new characters, the first of whom is Darian Crescent, the lead guitarist of the Gaviners. We stumble upon him arguing with Clavier about a missed cue during their set, which, with the help of an in-game mixing board, which was probably the most fun I had in the case, we determine is the fault of Darian. The second new character is Valent Grammarly, a magician who is also Trucy's uncle. Because of his role in the famous troupe Grammarly Magic Act prior to its disbandment, he was hired to help with the literal onstage magic that went down during the concert. And don't worry, the game shows you unskippable footage of the concert 800 times during the case to make sure you remember it. The investigation unfortunately leaves us in the dark, but luckily, a statement from Lemuel at the end of the first trial gives us a new idea of who the real killer might be. Darian Crescent, Clavier's bandmate. And after some more investigating and trialing, the truth comes out. So basically, Darian and Machi both needed money and teamed up to smuggle special cocoons out of Borgenia, the birthplace of Lemuel and Machi. These cocoons are special because they are the only thing that can cure a disease called incuritis, haha, but stealing them is illegal and punishable by death. Machi used one of Lemuel's guitars, which was being lifted to Clavier, to hide the cocoons, putting an igniter inside as well just in case something went wrong. However, the victim, Latouche, secretly doubled as an FBI agent and was on the trail of Darian and Machi. During the second act of the concert, when Darian was off stage, he was confronted by Latouche and had Machi detonate the guitar and destroy the evidence while he killed the agent. While this was happening, Lemuel was running through the air vents while Valent pretended to be her on the other side of the stage as a part of the teleportation trick, which is how she heard the gunshots. Oh, I should also mention that the whole Darian missing the cue during the third act thing was a result of fucking firecrackers, which were the detonators that he had planted inside of the guitar going off. Does that all make sense?
No.
Oh, hell yeah, that means I explained everything right. This case is fucking stupid. It's not entirely terrible. The mystery that it set up was really intriguing throughout, and I loved that the case was music-centric, as proven by how much fun I had with the in-game mixing board. But then it devolved into an irritating and repetitive nightmare. Constant flashbacks to an unskippable cutscene that looks ugly and is stupid because it doesn't have voice acting. Two culprits with completely unclear motives. An over-reliance on twists to the point where the entire case becomes ridiculous and nonsensical. Not to mention, it also fell into two of my least favorite tropes in Japanese media, a child being a culprit, no, not of the murder, but still, and a dumb amnesia subplot that we really don't even need to talk about. Turnabout Serenade gets a 4 out of 10. Oh yeah, Machi also turns out to not even be blind. Lemuel was the actual blind one. How the fuck did she manage to run through an air ventilation system from one side of a stage to another side on the opposite side of the venue in 2 minutes, all while perfectly maintaining her singing, which somehow was the same exact sound quality as it was on stage? This case is stupid. I have good news though. Case 4, the final case in the game, isn't fucking stupid. In fact, it's the best case in the game. This is Turnabout Success. Oh fuck, I already made a Succession joke in my last video. Cut this out. This case was pretty fucking incredible. Like, incredible to the point where it was almost a 10 out of 10 case in my book. Almost. So what made it so good and what kept it from, in my opinion, being a 10 out of 10? Well, to find out, we'll have to dive pretty deep into the case, so let's dive into it. Troop Grammarly is coming back, baby, and Trucy's got a ticket. Phoenix, who is temporarily back from his mission of researching the juris system that the court is thinking of reviving, tasks Apollo with the extremely important task of babysitting Trucy. Oh, and also, defending a client who's been accused of murder. So to the detention center we go, and upon arriving there we meet Vera Mishim, who I love so much. Like, I'm not even playing, she's one of my favorite Ace Attorney characters and I love her story so much. She's also heavily implied to be autistic. It's never confirmed, but it is cool to get kinda representation for that. Anyway, she's being nonverbal right now, so we make our way to the actual scene of the crime to piece things together and find Emma there. Hell yeah. So here's what happened. The victim was Drew Mishim, an artist who died from poisoning. The reason why Vera, his daughter, also an artist, was arrested is because it's believed that she laced her father's coffee with poison, but upon examining the scene, we find out some shocking details. There are no traces of poison in the coffee, rather they were only on one spot of the rim on the mug. Where most of the poison traces are found is this one tiny picture frame. We also find a painting that's hidden for some reason in a red envelope, and since Emma's here, we get to do an X-ray analysis on the envelope, a completely new feature. And after we do that, we find the full cryptic contents of the letter, and they are as follows. Mr. Drew Mishim, I've deposited the $100K in the designated account. Please send a receipt once you've confirmed the transfer. Sign the papers and send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. I need not remind you to speak of this to no one. Thanks to Emma, we find out that Drew died during an interview with a reporter and that he's currently interviewing Valent Grammarly at the Sunshine Coliseum, so we go there. Except that the reporter's not there anymore, he's at the detention center now. But before we head there, we talk to Valent and find out some true Grammarly lore. Of the 4 members, he's the only one still active, with Magnify, the leader, being dead, and Zack and Thalassa, who both look very familiar, both having fucked off somewhere, with the former being legally pronounced as dead due to having been missing for over 7 years. At the detention center, we meet the reporter, Spark Brushel, who is one of the most memorable witnesses in the game, mainly because he's the exact personification of this image. He's not very helpful here, but he does inform us that a painting with a description that is eerily similar to the hidden one we saw earlier was stolen. And thanks to Emma, we get to the bottom of that mystery. Drew Mishim was a forger, no, not that kind of forger, who stole the works of other artists. Damn. Rip Drew Mishim, you would have loved AI. During the trial the next day, we find out that Drew had some other shady hobbies, such as forging evidence 7 years back, proving a clear connection to the world of crime, a possible reason for the cryptic letter we found earlier, and a possible reason for Phoenix's disbarment, as forged evidence may have been planted on him in the trial that got him disbarred 7 years ago. We end up confirming that the real source of poison was the enclosed stamp mentioned in the letter from the red envelope and encased in the tiny picture frame, and during the rest of the trial we uncover more and more shocking truths. Firstly, Vera was the forger, not Drew. When Vera was 12, Drew discovered that she had an innate ability to perfectly copy existing paintings, and tricked her into creating forgeries for him to sell on the black market. Secondly, Drew had Vera forge the evidence that had brought Phoenix down 7 years ago. And third, Drew's death was originally supposed to occur 7 years ago to tie up any loose ends. The client who had requested the forged evidence sent him the stamp, but he didn't end up using it due to Vera being attached to it. After all, it was a stamp that depicted the famous troupe Grammarly. But before we can find out more, Vera suddenly collapses and is placed into intensive care. After the trial is brought to an early end, we find out that Vera had also been poisoned. Luckily, not with a lethal dose, but with enough to knock her out. And while she's hospitalized, Apollo thinks to himself, just what is this connection to the case 7 years? Pause. Here's where the case fucks up. Hi there, lovely viewer, you're looking great today. Where'd you get that shirt from? It looks amazing on you. No, that wasn't a yes or no question. Anyways, I'm going to give you 2 choices here. If you guess correctly, you get, I don't know, the custody of my non-existent children. The question is, how does Turnabout Succession solve the mysteries from the case 7 years ago and connect them to the case today? Does it A, have Apollo research the case and find out the necessary details and evidence needed to solve it and connect it to this case? Or B, does it put us back into the perspective of Phoenix using a random, lazily implemented system? If you guessed B, you're correct. So yeah, after bringing us back in time to witness the trial from 7 years ago firsthand, the game thrusts us into the Mason system, which from what I can tell is a, system that lets you examine past and present events from cases. How? I don't fucking know, because it's never explained and never gets brought back again after this case, nor is it ever featured before it. I'll give it credit though, it's cool to see a game mechanic that also doubles as an example of lazy writing. Anyways, thanks to the flashback to the 7-year-old trial, the Mason system, and the second trial for the present case, we find out the truths behind all of these mysteries, and here they are. It all started 7 years ago. Magnify Grammarly, former leader of Troop Grammarly and current victim of liver cancer, was about to die, and had to choose one of his students to succeed him. He had sent letters to Zach and Valent, his students, to come to the hospital during his IV treatment and kill him by shooting him in the head. However, he sent Zach's letter first, and when Zach arrived, he found himself unable to kill his teacher, instead shooting a clown doll near his hospital bed. This caused Magnify to wake up, and he told Zach that he had passed the test, giving the rights to him. Valent arrived later due to his letter arriving later, but like Zach, he couldn't bring himself to kill his teacher. When Magnify broke the news that Zach already had gotten the rights, Valent was pissed, and thus, when he heard Magnify shoot himself when he had left, he came up with a plan to frame Zach for his death and become Magnify's successor. And thus, the matter was taken to court. The one and only Christoph Gavin decided to handle Zach's defense, and he had young Vera forge evidence that would paint Valent as a murderer. He also gifted Vera with a bottle of nail polish that secretly contained the same poison used to kill Drew. You see, Vera has agoraphobia and bites her nails when she's anxious. Hell yeah, nail biter solidarity. Meaning that the poisoned nail polish would act as a ticking time bomb in case Vera grew up and testified about the forgery, which she did. And it did. Also, yeah, Christoph paints his nails. Damn, that guy really proves that you can be both scary and zesty. However, not everything went according to plan for Christoph, as Zach announced that he wanted Phoenix to defend him instead. This enraged Christoph, who used Zach's daughter, Trucy, 8 years old at the time, to unknowingly plant the forged evidence on Phoenix, and the rest is history. Phoenix got disbarred, adopted Trucy, and Zach vanished. Except he didn't die. He changed his identity to Shady Smith, a traveler who would meet his fate at the hands of Christoph in Case 1. Back to the present though. Nervous about the rest of the people involved in the case telling the truth about what happened, Christoph unsuccessfully attempted to kill Vera with a nail polish, as we know, but he was also the one that gave the stamp to Drew, successfully killing him. As a result of all of this information being uncovered, Vera is declared not guilty and gets better in the hospital, and Christoph is declared guilty, now being imprisoned for not 1 but 2 murders, plus 1 attempted murder and a fuck ton of other crimes too. Like I said before, Turnabout Succession was easily the best case in the game and absolutely could have been a 10 out of 10. But unfortunately, thanks to the severe case of lazy writing that is the Mason system segment, it doesn't quite hit that mark. But regardless, it's an incredible case, and it was extremely fun to piece together the game's almost overarching mystery, and finally bring justice, no pun intended, to the game's final boss. Not to mention, the case does a great job of resolving character arcs. Trucy finds out the truth-see about her father, Clavier gets to find out the truth about his brother, Christoph gets his ass handed to him for real this time, Vera gets closure, and the truth about Troop Grammarly, the group of some of the greatest magicians, as well as the group of some of the shittiest people, comes out. Hey wait, are you including Thalassa? What did she do? Well, surprise, it turns out that she's actually alive, is Lamiror, and is also the mother of both Trucy and Apollo, and does not tell them. Overall, Turnabout Succession is a fantastic conclusion to this good, flawed but good game, and I would give it a 9 out of 10. Before I move on to delivering my final verdict on the game though, let's talk about the non-story categories. Those categories being the characters, art, and music. First of all, the characters. This game has some great fucking characters. Trucy is my favorite new character from the game, first of all. I mean, she's just so fucking cute, and she has a really fantastic story to boot. Clavier was zesty and awesome as fuck, and again, he had a pretty great story. Christoph was an incredible villain, like, one of the best ones in the series. I love the Kitaki family, especially Waki, and like, finding out that people hated him had me in shambles. Alita was a cool villain, even if she was kind of a Dahlia knockoff, and Vera was fantastic, and the game did a great job of showing how fucked up Troop Grammarly was, especially Zach. Like, that dude had me genuinely tweaking every time he was on screen. Oh, and I guess Valen was pretty cool. Ew! Oh! What the fuck? Where did his mustache go? Emma coming back was super exciting too, and I loved her every time she was on screen, and oh yeah, I should mention that they briefly bring back Gumshoe in the flashback scene in Case 4, which was so awesome. Unlike the brief return of Mike Meekins. Out of every fucking Ace Attorney character, why are you bringing this annoying fucker back? You might notice though, I didn't mention Apollo or Phoenix in the list of my favorite new and returning characters from the game. And yes, I did that on purpose. This game really sucks at making Apollo the new protagonist, as it constantly sidelines him to give Phoenix more of a story. Granted, Phoenix's story in this game is pretty good, but as a result of it, Apollo sees a significant lack of character establishment and development. I'll talk more about this in a full video on this issue, so subscribe so you can see that when I make it. But for now, let's talk about the art. The character designs, environmental designs, and overall art are incredible, barring a certain aspect of Case 3, and the HD remaster really helps to show that. They're also, looking back, especially good considering what the next game in this series looks like. As for the music, the introduction of new tracks, as well as reworked classic tracks, for the music in the game is awesome. Trucy's theme, Emma's theme, and the Troop Grammarly theme stand out as my personal favorites. And now, it's time for me to give my final verdict on Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. Overall, this game was a really fun and enjoyable experience, and while it was definitely bogged down by stuff like lackluster writing and the entirety of Case 3, it also contained some of the best moments in the franchise. I would give it a 7 out of 10. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this surprisingly long video that was going to be even longer if I didn't cut out stuff from the script and some stuff from the video. So yeah, if you couldn't tell already, I worked very hard on this one, so if you wouldn't mind, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and all of that stuff, because I'm really hoping to hit 1K subs by the end of the year, and if you turn my post notifications on, you'll get to see my review of Dual Destinies when I make that video, and I think you'll want to see it because I will be complaining a lot in it. And also, feel free to comment your thoughts on this game as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one, but for now, bye! I call this next trick child abandonment. Ace Attorney Dual Destinies is the first in many ways for the Ace Attorney franchise. It's the first 3D entry in the series, it's the first game to feature Athena, and it's the first entry in the series that I didn't like. There are a variety of reasons for why I dislike this game, but first, some background. Development on Dual Destinies began in 2011. Uh-oh, we have a problem already. You see, Shu Takumi, the creator and lead writer/director of the series, was already busy working on Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright, a crossover spin-off game, which meant that he wasn't available to work on Dual Destinies. In his place, new producers, directors, and writers were hired. Let's see who they are. The new producer was Motohide Eshiro, who had worked as a producer on other Ace Attorney games. Okay, we're off to a good start. The new directors are Takeshi Yamazaki, who worked as a director for the investigation games, and Yasuhiro Seto, who has never directed an Ace Attorney game before, but has previous directing experience at least. As for the writers, take a look at their IMDb pages. A keen eye will notice that these writers have never written games before. The reason why this game feels like it was written by a team of amateur writers is because, well, it was. When you play this game, you can tell that the writers aren't completely confident in what they're doing. You can tell that the mastermind behind the series was absent from development. You can tell that the game could have been improved by the presence of a great writer. A great writer like me. I mean, come on, name another YouTuber who can pull off a segue like that. Actually, please don't. We'll talk more about this game's flaws in a bit, but first, hi, I'm Bizaster, and welcome to or back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're doing well. Today, we will be reviewing Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, the 5th game in the mainline Ace Attorney series, and the 2nd game in the Apollo Justice trilogy. Speaking of which, in case you missed my video on Apollo Justice, you can check it out with the link above. Here's how this video will work. First, I'll go through the cases, talking about them and giving them individual ratings. Oh yeah, pretty big spoiler warning, by the way. And then I'll move on to talking about the non-story elements of the game, such as the art and music, and finally, I'll give it a review score out of 10. But without any further ado, here we go. Also, please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1K subs by the end of the year, and if you could help, that would mean so much. Thank you. Case 1, Turnabout Countdown, starts out with a bang, or more accurately, an explosion, with a fully voiced and animated intro sequence. Pretty sick, right? If only the actual anime had that animation quality instead of, well, you know. This was a really cool introduction to the game. It was also fucking whiplash going from it to the actual game. So apparently I lied earlier when I said that this was the first 3D game in the series, because the first 3D game in the series was actually the spin-off crossover game with Professor Layton, which I haven't played, because it's the only Ace Attorney game that isn't on the Switch. Now, I may know fuck all about this game, but from what I can tell, the graphics are decent, and it's got me thinking that they gave the game's development team all of the good CG artists, because this game looks fucking bad. We'll talk more about the graphics later though. For now, let's talk about this case. So this is a pretty special case. Not only is it the first one in the game, it's also the first one to feature Athena Sykes. Athena's our new protagonist, and she's a cool, athletic, energetic girl who doubles as a law prodigy, becoming a defense attorney at the Write Anything agency at the age of 18. In this case, however, she's serving as an assistant. But who is she assisting? Apollo, that's who. The two are defending Juniper Woods, Athena's, childhood friend. But just as they're about to enter the courtroom, Apollo passes out. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention that Apollo got injured during that explosion from the intro, which is why he, 1, looked like that, and 2, collapsed. Fortunately, this means that Athena gets to defend. So here's what happened. During a trial in courtroom number 4 the previous day, a bomb that was hidden inside of an elephant plush detonated. Luckily, most of the people had been evacuated to safety, but unfortunately, a detective named Candace Arm was killed. The reason why Juniper is suspected is because her fingerprints were found on the burnt plush that the bomb had been hidden in. And now, with all of that covered, let's get into the trial. Man, I'm so excited to play as Athena. Just kidding! So yeah, surprise, Phoenix arrives and takes over the defense, which means that Athena is just the assistant again. Yay! Fucking Christ. I should probably mention that in between Apollo Justice and this game, Phoenix got his attorney's badge back, which is good because it successfully concludes his arc from the previous game, but also bad because it means that both this game and the next one force him back into the protagonist role, and this case is a great example of that. Anyways, the prosecutor we're facing in this trial is Gaspin Payne, the brother of Winston Payne, who is pretty much just him, in this case at least. The witness he calls to the stand is Ted Tonate, a bomb disposal specialist who claims to be the first person to discover Arm's body. Now, here's a little quiz for you. There are 2 witnesses, Ted and Juniper. We know that Juniper is innocent because she's our client. We've already had a case where our client turns out to be guilty, and the Ace Attorney series doesn't like retreading old ground. Except for when it does. Besides, she's pretty frail and is not an explosives expert, unlike Ted. By process of elimination, who's guilty? I'll give you 3, 2, yeah, it's Ted. Man, it's really sad to see how bad the writing in Ace Attorney has gotten. So here's what really happened. Ted was dismantling and selling bombs on the black market, and his next target was the one used to blow up the courtroom. However, the victim caught him, so he whacked her over the head with it, killing her. Before she died though, she wrote his his ID number in blood on the ground. Sorry, his name would have just been too convenient, I guess. When the bomb went off like we saw in the intro, Ted used the opportunity to make it look like the explosion had killed the victim, and he changed her dying message from L10015R to Woods, Juniper's last name, in order to frame her. But even though the case gets solved, there's still one glaring issue. Oh no, Apollo has become super fucking edgy for some reason and is now being mysterious and leaving. Oh no. Seriously, dude, ever since he put on that jacket, when the fucking DeviantArt OC is that?
Oh, why, Apollo? Why are you shutting us out?
What is this, fucking Frozen? Ignoring the very obvious culprit and his unclear connection to Juniper, this case was actually a pretty good start to the game. The writing's okay enough, the twist with Ted actually being the bomber and not just the killer is fun, the introduction to the animated segments is awesome, and Athena and Juniper and the relationship are great. Phoenix making his return to law is actually pretty nice, but it also meant that the case was bogged down by him stealing Athena's spotlight, and the far too fast look at Athena's emotion analyzing function, more on that in a bit, could have been a lot better. And if you played Apollo Justice or watched my review of it, you may also notice that the whole thing with the juror system being implemented following the last case of that game is just completely forgotten about. The juror system isn't in this game, nor is it mentioned at all, and spoiler, it's not in Spirit of Justice either. Honestly, this game was a really weird continuation from Apollo Justice. It feels like there should have been a game in between these two, but there's not, but whatever. Overall though, Turnabout Countdown was solid enough, and I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Wait, This case is about a serial bomber named Ted. Wait, hold on! If you're an Ace Attorney fan, then chances are you probably know about the third case, Curse, the commonly agreed upon idea that the worst case in every Ace Attorney game is the third one. In the first game, it was Samurai. In the second, it was Big Top. In the third, it was Recipe. Admittedly, I do like that case, but it's definitely the worst one in the game. And in Apollo Justice, it was Serenade. But Duel of Destinies changes up the formula by having the second case be the worst one in the game. Unfortunately, any semblance of an interesting build-up that was present in the first case was quickly detracted with this one, the Monstrous Turnabout, which is a flashback case. Already, but despite this fatal flaw, the case could still be salvageable. Unless...
Night-night, Alderman. Sweet dreams.
So, in case you didn't notice, the game just spoiled the killer like 2 seconds into the case. You may remember this technique being used in the earlier cases from the first game, but the reason that worked was because it was, well, the first game, and the early killer reveals early on helped show what type of game it would be. So this technique being used in the second case of the 5th fucking game in the series is a very bit fucking stupid. Anyways, following the intro, we learn that Apollo has been tasked with doing his main job, babysitting Trucy for the day, and oh my god, dude, she looks fucking gaunt. Jesus fucking Christ, dude, she developed a heroin addiction? So Trucy, wants Apollo to accompany her to Nine Tails Vale, a traditional Japanese village located in LA. Alright, look, we're at the point in the series where you just have to stop questioning it, alright? So into Nine Tails we go, where we meet Jinxie Tenma, Trucy's, best friend, and oh my god, she's so cute! Jinxie invited Trucy to come see a festival, and I don't remember what kind of festival it was, and I cannot be fucked to look it up because I do not like this case. It also ends up getting cancelled anyways because someone's killed during it. The victim in this case is Rex QB, the now former alderman of Nine Tails Vale. Damien Tenma, Jinxie's dad, is arrested for the crime as he was the only other person in the room where the murder happened. This would be a pretty cool setup for a mystery. If we, didn't already know who the killer was. There are a lot of interesting things about this case, but the most significant thing I realized near the start was, no. Don't tell me. Don't fucking tell me, dude. You can't move around. You can't investigate and click on things. What the fuck? Dude. And you can't click on evidence. You can't look at evidence either. What the hell? Admittedly, I got used to the lack of these features as I played the game more, but that doesn't mean I'm fine with it. One of the coolest aspects in this series is finding out new stuff about evidence by investigating it yourself. And point and click is literally one of the primary genres of it. You can't just get rid of them because then it's kind of just a visual novel, which would be fine, I guess, but the writing in this game is too mediocre to have it be the primary focus. Before I truly crash out over that though, let's move on. Given how this is the first non-tutorial case of the game, it introduces us to some of this entry's mainstay characters. We may have technically been introduced to Athena in the last case, but this case is chronologically the first one we have with her serving as an assistant to Apollo. The case also does a good job of actually introducing Athena's analytical psychology abilities, which I barely mentioned while talking about case 1, because the introduction is so brief and so random that I don't even feel the need to talk about it. Given how I, don't like this case, it was a little unfortunate that it was one of the only ones, if not the only one, to have Phoenix completely fuck off to give these two the spotlight. But on the bright side, their banter was really fun and made this case less shitty. As for the completely new characters, we have Bobby Fulbright, the detective in this game, and I really liked his gumshoe adjacent goofiness. Just, don't get too attached. We also meet the new prosecutor, Simon Blackquill, a convicted felon. Yes, you heard that right. Blackquill is a convicted murderer, as in, he is a prosecutor who is prosecuting someone accused of the same crime as him. But wait, that's ridiculous, you might say. There have to be laws forbidding murderers from prosecuting, right? Well, yes, but don't worry, the game has a valid explanation for that. You see, our characters are currently in a period known as
Dark Age of the Law.
The Dark Age of the Law is a period in which the law is, well, truly in its dark age. Defense attorneys are presenting forged evidence like it's a basic human function, prosecutors are making out as many false charges as they can, and all of this is the fault of a mysterious entity known as the Phantom. I found this whole plot to be incredible. I misread the script. I found this whole plot to be laughably edgy and corny, not to mention overblown and unrealistic. This game wants to be taken seriously, but it's really hard to do that when a fucking prison inmate is prosecuting. And he shows up in the court with a fucking hawk too. I'm making it sound like I hate Black Quill, and I don't. I mean, I don't necessarily like him all that much, especially not at this point early in the game, but I definitely prefer him to old Blank Slate from the next game, and he gets better in the final case, and we are currently on case 2. Oh yeah, that's what this part of the video is about. Apollo and Athena do some investigating, and oh no, it's the Joker on estrogen! I mean the killer! After talking with LaBelle, who is, the guy, Athena notes that her practice with analytical psychology helped her point out his comically obvious suspiciousness. I noticed it too, using common fucking sense. LaBelle is a pretty tricky guy, but thankfully, Apollo and Athena managed to find out the truth behind his crime and successfully defend Damien. Here's how the crime went down. LaBelle blackmailed Rex, the alderman of Ninetales Val and the victim of the case, into giving him money. Through this deal, he discovered a secret. The chamber of the Ninetales Manor was connected to a forbidden chamber which housed an expensive golden ingot. In order to get the ingot, he set up a meeting with Damien and Rex and laced their coffee with sleeping pills so that they'd, fall asleep. Once they fell asleep, he killed Rex and moved Damien inside the forbidden chamber, but was unable to steal the ingot as it had already been stolen. After disguising himself as Damien and confessing to the crime in order to implicate him, he moved him outside of the forbidden chamber and placed his fingerprints on the murder weapon before he woke up. Yeah, it's one of those cases. This case was not great. It took an instant nosedive in quality following the first one, sporting a plethora of huge flaws. From having an abrupt flashback case for some reason, to instantly revealing the killer, to being the first case in the game to show off the lack of classic features from previous games, to introducing one of the most idiotic ideas for a prosecutor yet, to having a stupid, annoying, irrelevant, stereotypical, and painfully obvious, even after the intro reveal, villain. That's all without mentioning the awful and needlessly convoluted writing that plagues the case throughout its runtime, by the way. I'd explain why exactly the writing is bad, but that would require me going into the whole fucking wrestling subplot, and for the sake of both of our sanities, I don't want to. I'd be lying if I said I hated everything about the case, though. I really love Jinxie and her interactions with the other characters, especially Trucy, and I really hope that they bring her back at some point because she really deserved better than this case. I also like the better executed introduction of Athena, which I keep mentioning because it was 1, in my opinion, more than welcome and much needed, and 2, fucking sick because she absolutely bodies a police officer.
When daddy dies, I just killed his sister dies. Who gonna weep when these coppers die?
That was very cool. We also get introduced to Fulbright here, and come on, look at this, he's just so adorable. Don't get too attached. Overall though, yeah, this case sucks. The monstrous turnabout gets a 4 out of 10. So yeah, like I said, the last case was definitely the worst one in this game, and the third case is better. Not by much though, because surprise, this one sucks too. That's right, baby, if you thought that the dark age of the series was already over, you thought wrong, because, no, it's not. Turnabout Academy is yet another flashback case, by which I mean it takes place after the last case but before the first one, as well as another bad case and another one where we have to defend Juniper. My god, this girl had to be arrested in the worst cases. But I guess I should explain the events leading up to Juniper needing to be defended, well, again, but also for the first time since this takes place before the last case. What the fuck? Welcome to the Themis Legal Academy, a prestigious high school that focuses almost entirely on law, with the 3 main courses that are being offered there being a course for aspiring defense attorneys, a course for aspiring prosecutors, and a course for aspiring judges. Athena, Apollo, and Phoenix are invited to visit the school in order to check out a school festival going on and watch a mock trial that the school is putting on. They're also supposed to meet with a Professor Court there, but she's running late. In the meantime, we meet another professor, Professor Means, who Oh, hey, check it out, he has a Genshin Impact character skin tone. This sheet of fucking paper is Professor Aristotle Means, and not only is he the palest motherfucker alive, he's also... Yo! Jesus fucking Christ, that is fucking terrifying. This motherfucker hit us with a nage. Anyways, my god, is Professor Court running late, and I wonder what's taking her so... Oh, that's what's taking her so long. She did. While we're examining the scene, Apollo tells us some interesting information. The murder is identical to the one that the mock trial script was written about. Before we can keep investigating though, the police arrive to the scene to conduct their investigation and we have to leave for now. While the police are at the scene, we talk to Juniper, who tells us some more information about what was supposed to happen during the mock trial. She had written the script and designed the costumes, and she was also supposed to play the defendant, while these two were supposed to play the lawyers. In a pretty crazy twist, it turns out that these two are actually named Robin Newman and Hugh O'Connor. Fun fact about Hugh, I had originally been referring to him as Timothy Dickbutt in the script, but unfortunately his name becomes an important plot point later, so that fucked my whole thing up. Robin's a student in the prosecutor course, Hugh is a student in the defense attorney course, and I mean, you can probably guess who plays which role in the mock trial. Oh, they're also Juniper's best friends. We talk to this trio for a little while, but suddenly Detective Fulbright comes in and arrests Juniper for the murder. She's arrested for two major reasons. One, she's enrolled in the judge course that Professor Court teaches, or taught, and two, she wrote the mock trial script that the murder appeared to follow. But all is not lost because Athena announces that she will defend her. One pretty cool thing about this case is that Clavier is up in this bitch, baby. Sure, he may look like he's been partaking a little too much in the rock and roll lifestyle here, but this is the last time he shows up before the series forgets he exists, so it's nice to see him. He's here because he was supposed to make a guest appearance during the mock trial that didn't end up happening, which, when translated to non-bullshit, means that the devs were looking for an excuse to include him in the game. Hey, I'm not complaining though. We also meet the man in the box. Oh wait, that's a girl, fuck. This is Miriam Scuttlebutt, the editor-in-chief of the school paper. She tells us that she'll be testifying tomorrow in order to protect Juniper. Except this facade quickly cracks as it's revealed that she's not Juniper's friend at all and spreads malicious lies about her and her friends via her writing. Anyways, in court the next day... Really, Ace Attorney? Okay. We find out that Robin's actually a girl. From a young age, her parents had forced her to pretend to be a boy, having her adopt a masculine voice, wear male uniforms, wear a brace, you get the picture. Thanks to Apollo and Athena, though, she's finally able to accept her female identity with pride. I had mixed feelings about this. So if you couldn't already tell by now, Robin is supposed to be a trans-coded character. I'm not a trans person myself, so I'm not going to outright say that she's a good or bad trans allegory, but I will share my thoughts. On one hand, the game mostly feels like it's trying to be accepting. It definitely feels like an attempt was made to make a respectable story for this character. On the other hand, though, it sort of comes across as like a weird joke, and I won't lie, forcing a character to come to terms with their gender identity in the middle of an entire courtroom is a little strange. There's nothing outwardly transphobic. Well, kinda, and Robin technically isn't even trans, so maybe I'm reading too far into it, who knows. All I'm saying is that I feel like her story could have been handled a lot better than it was. Anyways, more shit happens.
Objection!
Whoa! She is dangerously close to hitting a different pose there. And that shit leads to Professor Means, who I only mentioned like once in the script, whoops, being found guilty. Wow, you mean to tell me that the guy whose ideas are so diametrically opposed to the victims killed her? No way! Here's how the murder actually happened. Professor Means had been taking bribes from Hugh O'Connor, who is actually a super senior, who was 25 years old. Hugh was paying Means in order to keep his true identity hidden, and when Professor Court confronted her fellow professor about the bribery, he killed her with his staff, and framed Juniper by making the crime look like it had taken place according to her script. Case 3 of Dual Destinies was not very good. From being yet another flashback case to having yet another painfully obvious and dumb villain, to Hugh O'Connor existing, to overall just having really shitty writing, it was a case that I hated less than the previous one, but not by much. And that's all without mentioning the stupid fucking logical jumps, and I truly mean stupid, by the way. You're telling me that we're naturally supposed to come to the conclusion that you're a goner can be misheard as Hugh O'Connor? Like, I'm sorry, where's the R in between Hugh and O? The G in Connor? Hell, where's the A and O? What the fuck? And of course, all of the Dark Age of the Law bullshit. Like, this case is without a doubt the worst instance of that corny-ass plotline. I'm barely even exaggerating when I say that half of the dialogue in this case reads like this. So, Professor Means, what do you do? Oh, lots of things. I forge evidence, take bribes, punch babies, and I'm still allowed to be a defense attorney and legal professor. But hold on, how is that all allowed? Well, you see, Athena. Dark Age of the Law, Dark Age of the Law, Dark Age. I did like aspects of this case, though. It was awesome seeing Athena, 1, completely take the lead role in the case, and 2, defend her best friend, even if they, deserved a better case than this. The return of Clavier was nice too, even if he was pretty irrelevant overall and his sprite looked like that, and he wasn't the prosecutor for some reason. What else? The legal academy concept was sorta interesting. The case was being sorta centered around the mock trial was intriguing, I guess. Miriam was cute. Oh, yeah, I should mention that the only reason Miriam was mean was because she really wanted to be friends with Juniper and the others, which, yeah, isn't the most original character trait, but shut up, it's sweet. And Robin was fine, even if I had mixed feelings on the handling of her gender identity. Overall, though, I did not like Turnabout Academy, and I'd give it a 4 out of 10.
Achtung, baby. It's time for the guitar serenade.
No. Never again. The Cosmic Turnabout is a weird case to talk about because it's pretty much just the build-up to the next case, but is a separate case for some reason. We play as Apollo, and thanks to this case, we finally figure out why he's acting all edgy and shit. His best friend, Clay Terran, was killed. Who's Clay, you may ask, and I can't blame you for asking that, because that's also what I wondered during this case. I'll explain who he is though, a severe case of lazy fucking writing. The reason why we don't know who Clay is because we have literally never met him, and we have never heard of him until now. That's right, our introduction to Apollo's apparent best friend is that he is dead. The writing in this game pisses me the fuck off. Both this case and the next one try to throw this whole pity party to make us care about Clay's death and its impact on Apollo, when in reality, we don't even know who this fucker is. Maybe I'd care a bit more if they had at least implied its existence in earlier cases, but they absolutely fucking didn't. Oh, also, add this to the Apollo backstory counter. The case starts out with the trial for Clay's murder, where Apollo is defending Solomon Starbuck, Clay's fellow astronaut who was wrongfully accused of his murder. Damn, I fuck with the bisexual lighting. The trial abruptly ends, though, as we are finally brought back to the present, where Ted Tonate blows up the courtroom. Oh yeah, did I say that Apollo was taking the lead on this case? Phoenix ends up forcing himself back into the lead role for the investigation, with Athena serving as the assistant. After meeting with Starbuck, these sighs are unskippable by the way, we head to the Cosmos Space Center, which is where the murder occurred and where we meet the greatest character of all time, Yuri Cosmos. This dude is so fucking goofy, I love him so fucking much. After some investigating, this is Emma Erasure. This is fucking Emma Erasure. What the hell? Why the hell isn't she in this game anyway? Actually, after seeing Clavier in the last case, maybe her not being in this game isn't so bad. We run into Detective Fulbright, who, after some questioning, reveals that he's being super cooperative with us and giving us information because he's worried about Prosecutor Blackquill, who was actually wrongfully convicted for the murder 7 years ago, with the true culprit being the Phantom at the helm of, I don't know, some age of the law that's dark or something, I don't remember. His behavior has become increasingly worrying to Fulbright, as his search for the Phantom has become erratic in nature. You may have noticed that I've barely mentioned Blackquill during this script, and that's because up until this point in time, the game didn't give me any semblance of a reason to give a shit about him. Hell, even now I don't care that much. Wow, it's almost like this game's strategy with character establishment and development is to wait until the last second to make you care. Oh yeah, and the other reason I don't really care is because he has a hot sister who's way cooler than him. This is Aura Blackquill, yes her name's Aura, shut up, the lead robotics engineer of the Cosmos Space Station and the older sister of Simon Blackquill. She has somehow managed to flawlessly develop robots with human traits in the same universe where characters are still using flip phones. Don't worry, it gets even stupider in the next case. Like Simon, she's a huge asshole to us, but that's okay because the way she does it makes me feel some type of way, you know what I'm saying? God, I wish that were me.
That's unacceptable.
Anyways, we keep investigating. You and me both, Athena. You and me fucking both. We meet up with Apollo again, who's all like, I'll be taking a leave of absence. I want to solve things my own way. Dog, shut the fuck up. You're a lawyer, not fucking Guts. And then the trial happens, but it doesn't really matter, and we don't really have to talk about it because Yuri Cosmos is the main suspect, but he doesn't end up being the killer because, I mean, duh. The one thing I want to bring to light from the trial is
an important plot point.
No, I just wanted to point out this animation of Yuri Cosmos spinning around on his scooter. I love this so much, I could watch this for hours. Like I said, the Cosmic Turnabout is a weird case. It's an okay enough build-up for the next case, but as a standalone case, it's kinda just nothing. From starting at a really random point, to starting out Apollo's dumb and nonsensical angsty phase, to killing off his best friend that we never even met or cared about, to having Starbucks size be unskippable, to, you know, being turned into a build-up case for literally no reason, this case has a lot of issues. However, the intertwining between this case and the next one was kinda cool, and it was really nice not having another irrelevant flashback case. The characters were, for the most part, tolerable, especially Aura and Cosmos, for obvious reasons. I really liked them. With all of that said, though, the case is just mid. 5 out of 10. Oh wait, I guess some important stuff did happen in the last case, I lied. Starbuck gets a non-guilty verdict, but the evidence that gets him deemed not guilty ends up getting Athena placed under suspicion. Obviously, Athena is not a murderer, so we investigate, and during this investigation, Cosmos gives us a bit of new information about the Phantom. They're one person, and they're also a spy. Hey, I only said it was a bit of new information. But we're not the only ones here. Juniper has also shown up to the Space Center concerned about her girlfriend's arrest. Thanks to Juniper, we find out that Athena actually used to live in the Space Center when she was a kid, due to her mother, Meta Sykes, being both a psychologist and robotics engineer there. Juniper was Athena's only human friend as a child, meaning that she spent most of her time on character AI. Or, with robots that Metis and Aura built, but whatever. Unfortunately, Metis was murdered 7 years ago, and Athena was sent to live with her relatives in Europe. And who was it that was named as Metis' killer? None other than prosecutor Simon Blackquill. We go to talk to Aura about this, and alright, obviously this series is no stranger to being gay as fuck, but I am 99% sure that Aura's canonically gay. Not only does half of this interaction consist of her talking about how badly she misses being with Metis, she also drops this bar during court the next day. Come on. Anyways, this is getting a little too gay. Let's head back to the office. Oh my god, it's Pearl! And she's all grown up now. At least, that's what the game wants us to believe. Don't get me wrong, seeing Pearl again was great, I really missed her, but she's supposed to be 18 in this game, and you know what she looks like? You know when people draw fan art of aged up characters, but it's literally the same fucking character but stretched out and with very minor tweaks? This is what she looks like in this game. Anyway, she's here to give us a letter from none other than Maya, who lets us know that she's been doing well but hasn't been able to visit due to her spirit channeling training. But suddenly, Aura begins to truly tweak out and she's all like, "Grr, lesbian robot powers, go!" and activates the most bullshit plot device in this game. Robots have kidnapped the visitors at the space station, including Trucy, and are holding them hostage. Look, I was willing to suspend my disbelief about human-like robots existing in this universe, but having them actually be relevant to the plot? What the fuck? Anyways, Aura's demand is a trial that solves both the death of Metis and the death of Clay Terran. Oh yeah, remember that guy? We tried to talk to Athena before it, but she now has 5 black psych locks, or should I say, Athena Psychs locks? What? Come on, that was good! So we have the trial with, surprise, Edgeworth serving as the prosecutor because Blackquill is suspected of murder. They're just now realizing how bad of a fucking idea it was to have a convicted murderer as a prosecutor? Anyways, the trial happens, leading to us finding the real perpetrator of both crimes, Detective Bobby Fulbright. But not quite. You see, in a pretty crazy fucking twist, we find out that the real Bobby Fulbright has been dead for a whole year. The one that we've been talking to the whole time is actually the Phantom. Here's what actually happened to Metis. She had completed a psych profile on the Phantom, which led to her discovering that he had almost no emotional fluctuation. Worried about his identity being found, he snuck into the Space Center and killed her, framing Black Quill. As for what happened to Clay, it was pretty much the same thing. Another thing we figure out is that he was actually also involved in Case 1. In an attempt to get rid of any possible evidence against him, he stole Ted Tonate's bomb to trigger the explosion that occurred. Also, yeah, the reason why the courtroom looks like that is because this trial is being held in the courtroom that blew up. Just so you know. So in the end, everything is figured out. Athena and both Black Quills find out the truth about Metis' death, Apollo finds out the truth behind Clay's death and rejoins the Write Anything agency, and we finally figure out the true identity of the Phantom. Just kidding! The Phantom's true identity is never revealed. This pissed me the fuck off. Some people have praised this choice, calling it a genius choice that makes the overarching villain more terrifying. Yeah, you know what I found terrifying? How fucking lazy the writing in this game is. Turnabout for Tomorrow is a good case. I mean, it's without a doubt the best one in the base game. Aura's character was really interesting, and no, not just because she was the closest we got to having a canonically gay Ace Attorney character, her story was just really well done. Pearl and Edgeworth, and sort of Maya, coming back was also really awesome, even if it kind of felt like Marvel-esque fan service to have them back. Athena's character arc got resolved relatively nicely, the robots, even if them existing was stupid, were cute, and the setups of the mystery were pretty cool. It just doesn't live up to its full potential due to a variety of reasons, such as being in this fuck-ass game. Okay, I'm joking, I have actual reasons. This case is held back from being really good by a lot of dumb shit. Dumb shit like it being separated from Case 4 for no reason, and Black Quill suddenly not being able to prosecute, despite already being a prisoner. And the way his character arc was resolved in the end was really rushed compared to the arcs of other characters like Athena, too. The game also does a bad fucking job of explaining why he hated Starbucks so much. The Phantom never being fully revealed was just stupid, in my opinion, and of course there was my least favorite part, the whole robots taking hostages thing. I don't care how ridiculous I sound, that part of the case made it drop a whole number rating below what I was originally going to give it. Speaking of my rating, I'd give Turnabout for Tomorrow a 7 out of 10. It could have been a fuck of a lot better, but due to the issues I mentioned earlier, it's just not. This case concludes the main story of Dual Destinies, but we're not done yet. You want to know something really funny? Turnabout Reclaimed is the best case in this game. And it is a fucking DLC case. Before we start talking about it though, I should mention that I will not be including the score I give this case in the final rating of the game since it's technically not a part of the main thing. And before anyone tries to call this bias against this game specifically, it is not. I'll be doing this with the DLC case in Spirit of Justice 2 when I talk about that. So Turnabout Reclaimed is Phoenix's first case after getting his badge back, and it's a very interesting one because the person we are defending is not a person, she is an orca. What the fuck am I doing, man? You are defending an orca. So here's the situation. Jack Shipley, the owner of Shipshape Aquarium, was killed, and Orla, the orca, is the suspect. The orca's trainer doesn't want her to be put down and requests our defense services. Honestly though, I mean, defending an orca? Don't get me wrong, I don't want it to be put down, but animal defense really isn't in my skill set. I mean, who even is this orca trainer who's asking I swear on literally everything that I will do everything in my power to get that not guilty verdict. We investigate the aquarium with Athena. Not Apollo though, because he's busy getting shafted by the game. More on that later. And as we investigate, we run into Marlon Rhymes, a worker at the aquarium. He tells us about one of the main animals he takes care of here, a penguin named Rifle. We also learn that the only animal he doesn't feed is Orla. Marlon gives us a fish to feed Rifle, and all of a sudden we find none other than Pearl, who's here on a school field trip. But it feels like she's hiding something from us. With the help of Phoenix's Majatama, we get Pearl to reveal that she had gotten lost on her field trip and accidentally wandered into the food prep room, where she accidentally scared Marlon, making him drop a barrel of fish that he was carrying. The reason she was hiding this was because she didn't want to get him in trouble with the sanitation department. Moving on, we meet an author named Norma de Plume, who's really uncooperative with us, but we use the Majatama and find out that she actually witnessed the murder, and that's actually been trying to get dirt on Orla for a new book she's writing. Back at the Orca pool, we do some more investigating and find a previously undiscovered bloodstained coin, meaning that there's more to this case than it seems. But that's just the start of things we don't know about regarding this case. There are so many things that we don't know yet, but here's the thing. I know what happened, because I played the game. So yeah, after 2 intense trials and another investigation, we find out what really happened. The story starts a while back. Shipshape Aquarium owner Jack Shipley rescued not 1 but 2 orca whales, bringing them to the aquarium and naming them Aura and Orla. Azura Summers, a former trainer, is a former trainer because she suffered a fatal heart attack during a show with Aura, falling into the water. When Aura tried to rescue her, however, it looked to spectators like she had killed her. Animal control ordered for the orca to be put down, but in actuality, she was sent to another aquarium. After the incident, Azura was replaced by her protege, Sasha, and Orla replaced Aura, who, now that I'm reading this script out loud, I should probably clarify that Aura is not like Aura Black Whale from the previous case. We are talking about an orca whale. We are not talking about a lesbian. Well, I mean, I guess we don't know, but we're talking about we're not talking about a human lesbian. But it gets even more tragic. Marlon, who was dating Azura, was furious at Orla, believing that she had killed his girlfriend. During cleaning time, he drained the stage pool, intending to kill Orla, but this move killed Jack Shipley instead as he slipped and fell to the bottom of the pool. In a panic, he staged the crime scene by attempting to hide the coin that some of the captain's blood had landed on and making it look like Orla had killed him and making sure that Plume saw it. The true nature of this case gets revealed. It was all a tragic accident. Marlon, realizing that he was mistaken about Azura's death, feels guilty, having done all of this thanks to false assumptions, even unintentionally and indirectly killing a man as a result. But despite all of this, we still get a happy ending. The court recognizes that Marlon is no villain, greatly lightening his sentence, and several months later, the aquarium's show returns, with both him and Orla making their return. Did it sound like I enjoyed talking about this case more than I enjoyed talking about the other ones in the game? Well, that's because I did. This DLC case really had no business being DLC, as like I said earlier, it was honestly the best one in the game. Sasha was awesome. And hot. Marlon was a cool and unique character, and his backstory with Azura was tragic. The orcas and penguins were cute. The callbacks to the original trilogy, such as Pearl coming back, again, kinda felt like Marvel-esque fan service, but I still like them. The twists and the reveal of the 2 orcas were really cool, and the ending was pretty satisfying. No, it's not the best Ace Attorney case ever, but it felt like a classic one, while still putting its own spin on the formula. But definitely wasn't perfect. The needless fat-shaming of Plume that's played for laughs is just uncomfortable and unnecessary, and although Marlon, like I said, was cool, and it was nice to finally see a black character in Ace Attorney, a big part of his personality being rapping some of the worst AAVE usage ever was weird. The case originally being locked behind a DLC paywall was not only stupid, but also really unfortunate, because I can't with a good heart count it towards the final rating, given how, prior to the release of the trilogy, people had to pay extra money if they wanted to play it. But by far the most annoying issue in this case is the constant shafting of Apollo. Don't get me wrong, it's annoying as fuck when they give him the backseat treatment in other cases, but in this one, they don't even try to hide the fact that, for one reason or another, they're just too lazy to write him into it as a main character. Every single interaction with him at the Write Anything agency pretty much just boils down to, Apollo, you stay here and clean for no reason. Like, I'm barely even exaggerating. But overall, Turnabout Reclaimed was good, and I'd give it an 8 out of 10. If it had replaced Case 2 or 3, preferably 2, as a filler flashback case, then the game could have been, above average. Speaking of the game as a whole, let's talk about the non-story categories of it. The characters, art, and music, and then move on to giving it a final rating out of 10. First of all, the characters. Despite all of this game's shortcomings, I'm glad it exists because it introduces some of my favorite characters in the Ace Attorney franchise, which is saying a lot because Ace Attorney has a lot of characters. Athena's fantastic and I love her so much. Could the game have done a better job of establishing her character? Yes, a much better job. But her energy and personality are so endearing. Her banter with other characters, especially Apollo, is fantastic, and her backstory is incredible. I'll be entirely honest, she's my favorite protagonist in this game. Just would have been better if they treated her like one. I feel like Juniper's role in many aspects of the overarching plot may not feel like it only could have been filled by her, but she's cute, her relationship with Athena is adorable, and they need to bring her back if/when they make an Ace Attorney 7. I'd say the same for Athena, but I feel like that's a given. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't put it past this series to just completely forget about her. Please bring Athena back. Speaking of characters that need to be brought back, Jinxie. I said it before and I'll say it again. She deserves to be in a much better case. And what I'll also say now is that she deserves to be in a much better game. She's adorable, her dynamic with Apollo is really funny, and her relationship with Trucy is so sweet. I love her. Aura Blackquill was a great example of a sympathetic villain, and her story is surprisingly handled very well and genuinely hit me in the feels. I'd honestly really like to see her again in a future entry after she's been released from prison, and God, why are all the characters from this game that I liked girls that are hella gay? Speaking of female characters I like that are hella gay, Director Cosmos. Yeah, you know what? Let's look at that scooter animation again. Let's sit here. We're gonna do this all day. Oh, and like I said earlier, I like Sasha and Marlon. As for the other characters though, I either like them in a much more casual way than the ones I listed earlier, like Miriam, I dislike them, like LaBelle and Hugh, or I was just indifferent towards them, like Simon Blackquill. I really don't know how to feel about Blackquill. For the first 3.5 or like 3.7 cases, he's just a completely ridiculous character. He feels comically evil, he's pretty much just there to be an obstacle, and he's the butt of the whole dumb Dark Age of the Law plotline. But then you get near the end of Case 4 and you kinda start to care, and then Case 5 makes you kinda care enough to want to help him, but also by that point it's kinda late. Like, just one case ago, I didn't know any of this, and you were attacking me with anime wind slashes. I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind at some point, but as of now, I really don't care about Blackquill. Don't even get me started on his hawk, too. The art in this game, okay, I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything, the graphics are fucking ugly. Don't get me wrong, the character designs and animated cutscenes are fantastic, as are a fair amount of the environmental designs. But the 3D models and character animations are awkward at best, and scary as shit at worst. And honestly, most of the environmental designs are just drab. They couldn't even fix these issues in the remaster, and I can say with complete certainty that the 2D games that came before it looked a fuck of a lot better. Thankfully, the music has remained consistent in this entry, which, you know, means that it's good. The reworked tracks are all great, as were the new tracks, with Athena's theme, Fulbright's theme, and the revisualization theme being the biggest standouts for me. And now, it's time for me to give my final verdict on Ace Attorney Dual Destinies. The truth is, I hate this game a lot less than I let on. No, it's not a good game, and it's definitely the worst one in the series. Well, the mainline series at least. I still need to finish the Investigations collection, and I haven't played the Professor Layton spin-off, so maybe in a few years I'll come back to eat my own ass up. Eat my own words. But it's not necessarily a terrible game either. Yes, the graphics suck. Yes, the writing is subpar and felt parody-like at times. Yes, Phoenix constantly stealing the spotlight back is really annoying. Yes, the ability to investigate areas and click on evidence is severely limited. Yes, the Dark Age of the Law was probably the dumbest plotline in the franchise. But underneath all of those faults, there's a good game hidden somewhere in here. There are interesting characters, interesting plot lines, small details worth appreciating. For example, this is the first Ace Attorney game to have character customization, which, if you're a long-time subscriber, you'll know that I'm an absolute sucker for. Unfortunately though, those positives aren't enough to make Dual Destinies a good game, leaving it stuck in one of the worst categories a game can reach: mid. I'd give Ace Attorney Dual Destinies a 5 out of 10. And with all of that said, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and especially subscribing. If you guys could help me get to 1K by the end of the year, that would mean so much to me. Plus, by turning on post notifications, you'll be able to see my review of Spirit of Justice when I drop it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one, and until then, bye. Okay, I swear I didn't even mean to edit the scene like this, but this fucking cut from Apollo passing out to the fucking bomb blowing up, it looks It makes it look like him falling caused the explosion, and I can't stop laughing at it. Ace Attorney Dual Destinies was a game that I didn't like, but its sequel, Spirit of Justice, is a game that I kinda like. Yeah, nice going, me. This is gonna be great for audience retention. Spirit of Justice is the 6th and, as of 2025, most recent game in the mainline Ace Attorney series, and like its predecessor, it was created without the involvement of Shu Takumi, the creator and lead writer/director of the series. And although this game sports a lot of the same flaws as Dual Destinies, and even has some new ones, it also fixes a lot of the issues I had with it. For example, the graphics in this game don't look like absolute penis, so there you go. But before we get into all of that, we need to talk about the game. And before we get into that, hi, my name is Bizaster, and welcome to or back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. Like I said earlier, today we are reviewing Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice, but no, that is not all we are doing. Today we are also assigning a rating to the entire Apollo Justice trilogy. Was that exciting enough to warrant the dramatic effect? I don't want to waste any more of your time though, so before we get into the review, let me just give 3 super quick messages. 1, this video contains massive spoilers for Spirit of Justice. 2, Spirit of Justice is a direct sequel to Dual Destinies, and if you haven't seen my video about that game, I'd recommend checking it out with the link above. And 3, if you haven't already, then please consider liking, sharing, and especially subscribing, because I'm super kind of close to hitting 1K, and I'm hoping to hit that goal by the end of the year. Alright, enough fucking around, Spirit of Justice time. Case 1, the Foreign Turnabout, takes us out of the shoes of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney and puts us into the shoes of Phoenix Wright White Savior. That's right, baby, Phoenix is on a trip to the Kingdom of Khura'in, where he's tasked with spreading his amazing LA lawyer wisdom to this lawless kingdom. But that's the overarching plotline of this game. Well, sort of, and we're not there yet. At this point in time, Phoenix has just landed in the kingdom in order to pay a visit to none other than Maya Fey, who is doing spirit channeling training here. Hey, wait a minute, Maya looks a little different here. This little boy is I'll be your guide, a monk in training / tour guide / merchant / our guide, who has come to view Maya as an older sister figure after spending time with her during her stay in the kingdom. He tells us that, unfortunately, Maya's busy training right now, but fortunately, he can give us a tour of the kingdom. And give us a tour he does, showing us many locations such as definitely not the Taj Mahal, and even tells us about Khura'inese traditions. The people of Khura'in believe in a figure known as the Holy Mother, and regularly perform dances of devotion and songs of ceremony in honor of her. Albie even takes us in to see one of these special performances, and is subsequently arrested for treason. So yeah, in typical Ace Attorney fashion, Phoenix really can't go anywhere without having to defend someone. But something is off here. When we go to the courtroom for Albie's trial the next day, the bailiff seems shocked when we tell him that we're a defense attorney, and the trial we witness is far from a typical one. The prosecutor is at his bench, but there's no defense attorney to be seen at the other bench. Instead, a young woman in regalia stands in front of Albie at the witness stand. The judge mentions something about a seance, and shortly after that delivers a verdict. Guilty. But we won't stand for this ruling, so we object and announce that we will defend Albie. And like the bailiff from before, everyone is shocked. That's when we learn the reality of Khura'in's legal system. A defense attorney hasn't set foot in their courtroom in 20 years, seances are used to determine the accused's guilt, and one thing's especially clear, we are not welcome here. Yeah, I don't know why they sound like that either. But despite this unfamiliar environment, there is a familiar face here. It's Gaspin Payne who's prosecuting in this case. He reveals that after his humiliating loss and turnabout countdown from Dual Destinies, he fled the country and ended up becoming a respected prosecutor here. But in addition to becoming a respected prosecutor here in Khura'in, he has also become very fucking evil. Like, when we request permission to defend Albie, he's like, okay, fine, but if you lose, you will both get the death penalty. Putting Phoenix to death would obviously be evil, but at least there's, like, reason for pain behind it. Like, in Gaspin's eyes, he's responsible for ruining his reputation in America, but Albie is a 9-year-old boy. Like, what the fuck? The most evil things his brother did was, like, having a shitty haircut and being arrogant. Anyways, here's the crime that Albie's being accused of. The Temple, which he showed us earlier and I called the Taj Mahal, was a recent target of theft and murder, with the prized founder's orb being stolen and a security guard, Patrol, being killed. Albie is the suspect because of his connection to the temple via his monk training, combined with his status as the son in a poor family. The prosecution claims that Albie could have easily snuck into the temple to steal the orb, which would have alerted Pot and forced him to kill him. And as if the odds weren't already stacked enough against us, we find out that the seance from earlier almost conclusively points to his guilt. Oh yeah, I should probably explain this whole seance thing, huh? This young girl is Rafa Padma Karain, the princess of the kingdom, who has the ability to perform a divination seance that lets her see the victim's last moments before, dying. Pretty convincing stuff, right? But like I said earlier, it's only almost conclusive. You see, even though Rafa's vision makes Albie look like a murderer, we could be picturing everything wrong. But when we bring this point up, the already angry court gets even angrier at us. Not only are we serving as the defense in a kingdom that hates lawyers, defending someone accused of sacrilegious crimes in a kingdom that's dependent on religion, we are also now doubting a sacred ritual performed by the kingdom's princess. And as this really weird-sounding audience started chanting death threats at us, it made me realize something. This case was about to suck some serious fucking butthole. And spoiler alert, it was some serious fucking butthole. This is the first case in this game, a mere tutorial case, and it's already placing us in a completely new environment, one that's hostile to a pretty stupid extent, when in my opinion at least, more exposition was very much needed. Oh, and don't think that I'm about to let the fact that the primary suspect in this murder-theft combo is a fucking 9-year-old boy slide. Like, once again, I get that this kingdom's legal system is supposed to be royally fucked, but like, come on. This and the amount of hostility the witnesses exhibit towards us is just fucking stupid. But before I launch into full-on complaining mode, let's get back into the mystery. After cross-examining both Albie and the seance, we determined that a third person could have been in the temple with Albie and the victim, but Payne calls a witness named Peace Lubin Understandin, yes that's his real name, to testify that the suspect and the victim were the only ones in the room. Peace Lubin is the head monk of the temple, a musician who plays accompaniments for Karain's religious dances, and the real killer. Oh no, I spoiled it! So yeah, here's what actually happened. Peace Lubin, who's actually a foreigner, heard about the Founder's Orb and moved to the kingdom of Karain. By pretending to be a devout practitioner of Karainism, he was able to become the head monk at the temple, giving him access to the orb and allowing him to steal it. At the same time as this, Pat Troll, the victim, was also planning to steal the orb, as he, like Albie, was impoverished. By the time he had snuck in to steal it, however, Peace Lubin had already gotten to it, and he decided to steal the box it was housed in instead. On the way out, he encountered Albie and threatened him with his gun, causing him to raise his hands and surrender, which is why it looked like he was about to hit the victim with a blunt object in the seance. In reality, Peace Lubin used the darkly lit nature of the temple at night to his advantage, sneaking behind the victim and hitting him over the head with his sitar, killing him. Because of this newfound information, Albie gets a not guilty verdict and thanks us for our support. But the craziness isn't over yet. We find out that the orb is still missing, and Inga Karul Karain, the kingdom's minister of justice, tells us that he was able to cover up our win as an act by a rebel group led by a man named Dirk known as the Defiant Dragons, and essentially tells us to fuck off. This case, to put it simply, does way too much shit for a first case. Like I said earlier, all of the shit that this case threw at us in the introduction stage of the game was just ridiculous, but it's also just way too long. Apollo Justice's first case was similarly longer than the usual first Ace Attorney case, sure, but I like that one because it had a reason and was paced well enough while also still being engaging. But here, you're made to sit through heaps of exposition and unnecessarily lengthy dialogue, especially when it comes to the gallery, who makes strange noises and are cut to for reactions way too often. It has an interesting start and interesting moments, but for the most part, it's just chaotic and weird, which isn't new for Ace Attorney, but it's much more irritating than charming here. That isn't to say that I hated everything about the case, though. Albie and his dog were cute, the introduction to the seances actually felt pretty welcome and understandable, the case's overarching mystery was, underneath all the annoying exposition and dialogue, actually pretty interesting and sensible, and as ridiculous as Peace Lubin was, I actually kinda liked him. Like, the part where you accuse him of the murder and he gets so pissed off that his sitar turns into an electric guitar and he starts shredding is actually funny as fuck. Overall though, this case just wasn't good. The 4 in Turnabout gets a 4 in out of 10. Get it? Like, 4 the number, but also 4 in. Get it? Case 2, the Magical Turnabout, actually takes us back to good old Japanifornia, putting us in the perspective of Apollo and Athena. Normally, I'd complain about how this is an interruption of the overarching plot, and while it is, super early in the game too, I was not fucking with the overarching plot so far, so I did not care. This case starts out with Apollo and Athena watching the first act of Trucy's magic show, and after it ends, they go into the dressing room to congratulate her. She's super happy about how the show's going and even just signed a contract for a TV series. After talking to her for a bit, Bonnie, a fellow magician who will be appearing in Trucy's second act, gives us a cryptic, ominous warning about the dangers of performing magic. Well, that was weird, but whatever, let's just enjoy Act 2 of Trucy's show. Why is there a real dead body in the fake coffin? Because it looks to everyone like Trucy killed the victim, she's arrested, and after meeting a man named Mr. Rettens who claims to be the man behind the scenes, desperately trying to get into the crime scene, we go visit her in the detention center. Here, she tells us that she didn't kill the victim, whose name is Mr. Rias. Why was he in the magic show, you ask? Well, it turns out that he used to be part of Troop Grammarly from Apollo Justice, but left after an onstage injury 13 years ago. And I'll be honest with you guys, I feel like retroactively introducing a new 5th Troop Grammarly member was completely random and ham-fisted and detracted from— oh my god, Emma's back! That's right, baby, Emma Skye, Detective Extraordinaire, is back, and if you haven't noticed already, something's different about her in this game.
She's happy again?
No, well, I mean, yeah, but she's an actual forensic investigator now. Emma gives us permission to investigate the crime scene, because fuck yeah, baby, we can investigate areas and evidence again. And since we obviously choose to defend Trucy, we investigate. And I gotta say, I think this is one of my favorite areas to investigate in this game. There's a lot to explore, a lot of funny banter, and my personal favorite part, you get to dust for fingerprints, whoa! We dust the fake coffin for fingerprints and end up finding out some mysterious info. Some of the fingerprints don't match any of the ones we have on file, and the ones belonging to Mr. Reyes are positioned backwards. Emma also tells us that in court we'll be facing Nayuta Sadmandi, who's this game's new prosecutor. But not only is he new, he's also the worst prosecutor in the series. Well, the mainline series at least. I've never played the Professor Layton spinoff. Unlike Black Quill from the last game, who I didn't really like or dislike, I really just do not like Nayuta, and that's because he was just so fucking boring. For most of the game, he's a generic, self-righteous asshole, and his motives for acting the way he does don't make much sense. But we'll talk more about him later. After all, we're not even talking about the trial yet. We investigate for a little while longer before eventually running into Mr. Rettens again, and in a crazy twist, we find out that his first name is actually Roger and not Mr. When we talk to him, we learn some new info. He's a TV producer, with his alibi for the crime being that he was in the middle of shooting at a TV studio, and he has a burning hatred for magicians, especially Troop Grimmerly. Moving on, we talk to Bonnie in the dressing room again, and she tells us that she's a big fan of Trucy's, and gives us access to the underway passage that the magicians use to create the effects of tricks from under the stage. But before we can investigate it, Rettens bursts in again, telling us that his studio is going to have to cancel Trucy's TV show, which, according to the contract she signed, will result in a $3 million fine. So forget investigating the underway passage for now, we need to talk to Trucy about this. Just as we thought, Trucy clearly remembers the contract she signed not having that whole thing be a part of it. And when we go back to the dressing room to look at the clipboard the contract was on, we discover a sheet of carbon paper hidden inside of it. In other words, Trucy was conned. Putting this issue on hold for now, we investigate the understage area, discovering a sword that's nearly identical to the one that was used as a murder weapon, except that this one's rubber, meaning that someone must have swapped it out with a real sword. But all of a sudden, we hear voices coming closer and we hide. And as it turns out, these voices belong to none other than Bonnie and Rettens, and the former is acting quite different than we've seen so far. We end up visiting the TV studio that Rettens claims gives him an alibi, and receive a copy of the footage of the magic show, which I think is the first example of video evidence in the series, which is really cool. Anyways,
don't hate me cause I'm beautiful.
In court, we find out some crazy shit. First of all, the mean Bonnie we saw earlier was not Bonnie at all. Rather, it was her twin sister, Betty. And second of all, Roger Rettens is actually Mr. Rias. But wait, if he's Mr. Rias, then who's the victim? Well, after a while, we find out. It all started 13 years ago. Rias, during a show with Troop Grammarly, accidentally burned himself while performing a fire trick, which led to Magnify deeming him to be too untalented and kicking him out. Since then, he's had a grudge against the troupe, and he saw Trucy's magic act as the perfect opportunity to exact his revenge. You see, the great magician Mr. Rias had become TV producer Roger Rettens, and after discovering that Trucy was the daughter of Zach Grammarly, he exacted his elaborate crime. Rias worked with Betty, who had a grudge against Trucy, telling her that they would prank Trucy on camera to humiliate her, but in reality he set up a contraption under the stage to kill the victim before putting him in the coffin, framing Trucy for the murder. And that's not it. The contract he had her sign would go into effect, sending her into a practically unpayable debt. Not to mention, he attempts to repossess the Write Anything agency. This dude is fucked up. Luckily, we're able to fit all of the pieces together and get Rias arrested. But wait, if Rias committed the crime, who was the victim? Why, he was none other than Man of Mystery, Rias's protege. Yeah, this is kinda dumb. Like, the mystery with the victim was cool at first, but then the whole time it just turns out to be some fucking guy. After the trial, Bonnie and Betty, especially Betty, are in shock, unable to believe that they were used by Rias as accomplices in the murder. They want to atone for what they did, and Betty even admits that she has a secret admiration for Trucy. Aww. And speaking of Trucy, her life goes back to normal, with her magic show returning. All's well that ends well, right? I liked this case. It was, thankfully, a massive improvement over the first one, and it did a lot of shit right. Defending Trucy was awesome and allowed for some fantastic character development, and Rias was such a great villain. Sure, he was a little over the top, but he was such a cunt and I wanted to kick his ass so badly, so they did a good job with that. He also had a pretty great twist reveal too. The introduction of video evidence examination, the reintroduction of Emma, and as a result, forensic investigations were sick, and the supporting characters like Bonnie and Betty were good too. I enjoyed them. Bonnie was especially cute. Oh, and of course, it was so awesome being able to investigate areas and evidence again. It was just I don't know why it was ever removed. Unfortunately though, the case is far from perfect. The decision to retroactively introduce a completely new Troop Grammarly member was kinda stupid, and as much as I liked Bonnie and Betty, it kinda felt like the whole game was trying to redo the whole Iris and Dahlia twin dynamic thing, but to a much less cool extent. Also, like I said earlier, making the real victim just some random fucking dude was idiotic, as was, well, Nayuta existing. Overall though, the Magical Turnabout is a very fun and solid filler case, and I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Oh, also, I don't know why Magnify kicked Rias out of Troop Grammarly. He was a perfect fit there, because he's a fucking scumbag. The Rite of Turnabout, like Turnabout Academy from the last game, broke the third case curse by not being the worst case in the game. Unlike Turnabout Academy, however, this case is actually good. In fact, it's the best one in the game. So this case puts us back in Phoenix's shoes again, meaning that, once again, we're in Khura'in. But it's not just any ordinary day in Khura'in. Today is the Purification Rite, which is only performed once a year. And it's especially exciting this year because Maya is performing it. That's right, baby, in this case we finally meet up with Maya again, and I'm glad they waited until this game to bring her back, because if she was in Dual Destinies, she might have looked scary as fuck. We talk to Maya and she tells us about the rite. It's a very important part of Khura'inese culture, and the role she's playing is usually played by the High Priest's wife, but because she's pregnant this year, she's acting as a stand-in. The celebration's inspired by Lady Kira, a woman who fought long ago to establish the kingdom of Khura'in. In recent times, however, she's also become a symbol against resistance, as someone disguised as her, donning her robes and dagger, has been hunting and capturing members of the rebel group the Defiant Dragons. But with all of that out of the way, let's get into the rite. Those who are watching the rite have to stay in a prayer position, so Phoenix gets into it as well. And we've seen our fair share of murderers in the Ace Attorney franchise, but don't let that distract you from the real killer, back pain. So yeah, Phoenix's back starts hurting while he's in the kneeling position and he fucking faints. He wakes up in the High Priest's house, and apparently we missed a lot while we were out. Maya's been accused of and arrested for a murder. We rush to the crime scene where we meet up with Emma, who's here because Nayuta requested her detective services. She tells us that Tarust Inmi, the High Priest, is the victim, and Maya's the sole suspect, being the only person besides him in the inner sanctum. It's also believed that he was killed with Lady Kira's dagger. We go to investigate the inner sanctum, where we find a familiar face, Rafa from Case 1. She's still pissed off at us thanks to the results from that trial, and is convinced that Maya's the killer. We ask her if we can investigate the scene, and she allows us, but only under intense scrutiny from her, as she's convinced that we plan to forge evidence. So Rafa pretty much becomes our assistant, and Oh man, there is a lot to unpack about her character, okay. She's similar to Franziska in Case 4 of the first Investigations game, which I haven't even made a video about yet, but ignore that. She has this spoiled brat princess vibe that's intended to be annoying but also slightly endearing, but Rafa comes off as more annoying than anything. I'll get more into her character later, but it's like, I don't know, seeing her get flustered after we discover shit like her love for the Plume Punisher, Karine's version of the Steel Samurai, is a lot less cute when she was trying to give a 9-year-old boy the death penalty in the first case we had with her. Anyways, after investigating the crime scene with her, we talked to a weird man and then moved to the detention center to talk to Maya. Maya tells us that the High Priest and his wife had been letting her stay with them, and the High Priest was a very kind spirit channeling trainer to her, and she couldn't imagine killing him. However, she's unsure of what really went down. All she remembers from the ride is feeling really sleepy and then waking up to the High Priest being dead. The next place we visit is the High Priest's house, where we talk to his wife, Belib. She claims to be unsure of why someone would want to kill Tarust, but when she says this, 3 Cyclocks appear. And after we break them, she tells us that a letter from the rebel hunter had been sent to him, warning him not to perform the rite. Soon after this, however, the Queen requests an audience with her, so we tag along. After a brief discussion with Queen Garan, who's Princess Rafa's mom, she leaves with Rafa and Belib, leaving us stuck with Inga, who is actually Rafa's dad. Once again, he warns us to watch ourselves, and tells us that the only reason we won in Case 1 was because Gaspin pressed false charges. According to him, though, we won't be as lucky this time around, because we're facing Nayuta again. I do. I want an opponent that's not a boring little bitch. Before the trial, we talked to Maya in the detention center again, and she excitedly tells us about her ultra-rare plumed Punisher strap, which she traded her Steel Samurai watch for. Trust me, there's a reason why I'm bringing that up. It becomes relevant in a second. You know what they say, a true magician never reveals their secrets. Well, fuck you, Troop Grammarly, I'm revealing mine. When I talk about the individual cases in these reviews, I usually only cover information from the first investigation day and the last trial day. I do this in order to ensure that the length of these reviews aren't completely fucking insane. Why am I bringing this up, you may ask? Well, to tell you that there are 2 reasons why I'm not talking about the first trial in this case. The first reason is what I just talked about, and the second reason is that it's pretty much pointless as fuck. So yeah, remember the weird dude we talked to for a little while earlier? Well, he ends up being Dats Aribal, the right-hand man of the Defiant Dragons leader Dirk, as well as an escaped prisoner. The first trial essentially just consists of him maybe being a possible suspect, but then he's not, and then he drops the big reveal of who he is and escapes. So basically, the trial is pretty much just an excuse to introduce him. So let's just move on to the second trial. This trial is fucking insane. Like, insane as in there are 2 murders we are now trying to solve, and Maya ends up channeling Tarust. So yeah, a second person, Pere Zealot, a monk who was also living with Maya and the Inmi family, is found dead on the second day of investigation, and of course, Maya suspected of that murder too. But thanks to the combined powers of spirit channeling and lawyering, we get to the bottom of the case. Here's what really happened. Tarust and his wife, Belib, were both secretly rebels, and they weren't the only ones with secret identities. Pere was both a member of Karine's secret police, run by Inga, and the Rebel Hunter. Under the guise of being a monk, he was taken in by the Inmi family, along with Maya, who found out that Belib was a huge fan of the Plumed Punisher, and traded her rare Steel Samurai watch for her Plumed Punisher strap. One day, Pere discovered Belib at the rebel hideout and tried to attack her, and she killed him in self-defense. This caused the Steel Samurai watch to sound, and Tarust heard the sound thanks to the microphone he had planted in the hideout. When he realized what had happened, he tried to protect her by framing Maya. During the rite, he drugged her with a sleeping pill, which caused her to, well, fall asleep, and tried his best to frame her for his death, while in reality he killed himself. He told Belib none of this, fearing that she would try to stop him. Except now, we are in court, where Belib has heard all of this. It's at this point that the true nature of this case gets revealed. It's a tragedy, one consisting of a multitude of accidents. This scene with Belib saying her final goodbyes to Tarust is deeply emotional and damn near tear-jerking, until it cuts to the sprite of Tarust wearing Maya's clothes, which is funny as fuck. But the case isn't over yet. We find Rafa, who's clearly very upset and conflicted. I mean, she just found out that her own father was endorsing state-sanctioned murder with the whole Pere situation, and her seances have brought about false charges. But there's no time to think about that because there's an explosion in the courthouse and Dats escapes with Believe. Case 3 was good for many reasons. We finally got to see Maya again for the first time in a while, and although having to defend her again was kinda stupid and overdone, it was still funny to see that she still has the worst luck of all time. The plethora of twists was a bit excessive, but the twists themselves were super impactful, and the ending was really emotional and touching. Also, I don't care how small of a plus this is, the visual gag with Believe showing the pictures of Tarust was incredible. I found it really funny. Like, at first it's like, oh, this grieving woman has pictures to remember her husband by, but then it's like, she has pictures of him getting angry and shit, and all of the photos appear to be from, like, the same photo shoot. Like, it made me laugh every time it happened. I wish they did it more. The only two problems I really had with the case were that the first trial was pretty much pointless and felt like an excuse to introduce stats and have a break between the two murders. Notice how I didn't use any footage from the first trial aside from when I was complaining about it, and it didn't have any impact on my summary of the crime. And the attempt to make Rafa a sympathetic character didn't quite hit the mark. Those problems, especially the first one, were pretty fucking significant though, and weighed down my enjoyment of the case. But still, I'd give The Right of Turnabout a 7 out of 10. So yeah, that case was pretty good. I hope the next one is too. Fuck! It's not. Oh yeah, skip to the timestamp displayed on screen if you don't want to hear me rant about a stupid YouTube video. Even if you don't know anything about Ace Attorney, chances are you've probably seen or heard of Phoenix Wright Disgraced Attorney, or as I like to call it, the worst animated video to ever grace this godforsaken site. Fuck this video. Oh my god, I've been waiting so long to say that. The video itself sucks. It's stupid, unfunny, and gets a laughable amount of information wrong. Phoenix is the prosecutor, while Edgeworth is the defense attorney. Edgeworth is straight instead of a raging homosexual. The two shouldn't even be here because, oh yeah, spoiler, this video is based off of a case where Athena is the defense attorney. This character, Geiru Tenero, is pretty much the main joke of this animation because, ooh, she's a hot woman with big boobs and dresses funny and sex. Isn't this funny? Isn't this fucking funny? Fuck this video. But while the video sucks, it was the outcome of it that was the worst part. For months, literal fucking months, you couldn't find anything Ace Attorney related on social media that wasn't related to Geiru in this stupid video. I had to unfollow the goddamn Ace Attorney hashtag on Instagram for a while because every post was this stupid fucking clown, and it wasn't even fans of the series that were doing most of it either. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to act all gatekeepy. Ace Attorney deserves more recognition, and even if you don't plan to play the games, fuck it, draw a character because you think they look cool, that's awesome. What isn't awesome is when my fucking feed is flooded with a bunch of gooner fucking losers posting bullshit like this. In conclusion, I forgot I was talking about this case, let's keep doing that. I wish I could say that Turnabout Storyteller was better than that fuck-ass video, but it really isn't, it just sucks. And not just because of Geiru either. Let's take a look at this case to see why exactly it's so bad. So like I said during my dumbass little rant, we play as Athena in this case, and one cool thing I should point out is that this is her first solo case. She handles it entirely on her own without any help from Phoenix, Apollo, or anyone else. Foreshadowing. We're tasked with defending this man, Bucky Wet, who shows up drunk to his own trial, doesn't take Athena seriously, and reveals that the only reason he has a job is because his dad runs the soba shop he works at. Wow, what a likable character I want to defend. That's not all about him though, he's also Black Quill's friend. So yeah, surprise, Black Quill has friends and is also in this case. And can I be honest with you, I kinda wish that he wasn't. Like I said earlier, I don't have any strong feelings about Black Quill, but in this case he pisses me the fuck off. He's such an asshole to Athena, he's always making comments about how she's just a rookie, and won't be prepared to defend her client, and it's just not an endearing dynamic at all. But hey, at least Athena proves him wrong during the trial, right? Foreshadowing. Speaking of the trial, let's get to that. Here's what happened. The victim, Taifu Tornado, the victim was one of those good old LA Rakugo storytellers. You find them everywhere. The victim, Taifu Tornado, a Rakugo storyteller, was suffocated to death via an undetermined method in his dressing room. The reason why Bucky's the suspect is because he went to the Rakugo theater at the request of the victim, and because the victim had supposedly stolen the deed making Bucky the head of the soba shop, that gives him a motive. Aside from Black Quill, there are two witnesses in this case, Uendo and Geiru Tenero, who were the victim's disciples. As Uendo testifies, we discover that Taifu's Karuta cards, which were found at the crime scene, were rearranged, originally spelling out 0 and 4th instead of wet number 4. Uendo was the one that rearranged the cards, but here's the thing. He actually has dissociative identity disorder, and one of his alters discovered the body, meaning his actions technically weren't his. I'll talk more about that in a bit, but for now we have another important piece of information. He was set to become Taifu's successor despite the fact that Geiru had more experience. This gives Geiru a motive to have killed Taifu, and fortunately we're able to get her to testify. Unfortunately, the only reason she comes back to the stand is because the judge is like, oh, how I yearn to look at the large, voluptuous breasts of that woman. Anyways, we get to the bottom of the case, proving that Geiru was, in fact, the killer. Here's what actually happened. Geiru killed Taifu by suffocating him in udon dough that he was using after he named Uendo as his successor instead of her. She then cooked soba noodles and shoved his face into the bowl to cover her tracks, and rearranged Taifu's Karuta cards to write out Owen 4th to frame Uendo, as Owen was Uendo's secret 4th alter. When Uendo discovered the scene, he rearranged the cards to spell out wet number 4, framing Bucky. So yeah, this case is pretty flawed. Bucky's an annoying defendant, Black Quill's an ass, Geiru's a walking fan service machine, and it's such obvious filler. But hey, at least we get to witness Athena taking down a culprit all by herself, right? No! For some fucking reason, Black Quill constantly jumps in to save Athena and make points, and is somehow allowed to, despite the fact that he is a prosecutor and, in this case, is just a witness. This pissed me the fuck off. Are women incapable of doing things on their own, Ace Attorney? Is that the message you're trying to send here? Not everything about the case is awful. I enjoyed Uendo's character enough. From what I can tell, he was pretty good DID representation, even if stuff like the use of personalities instead of alters wasn't great. It was nice to see more of the Ace Attorney franchise not demonizing mental health, because a lot of other fictional media does that. Also, rearranging the cards in that one section was cool, and the case was short, which is nice. But none of that's enough to make this case good, so in conclusion, Turnabout Storyteller gets a 4 out of 10. Athena deserved a much better first case. Turnabout Revolution is a really divisive case amongst Ace Attorney fans. It seems that one half loves it and the other half hates it, and there's very little middle ground. I'm a part of this middle ground as I thought that the case was just okay. We start out in the perspective of Apollo, who is hanging at the Write Anything agency with Trucy and watching the news when all of a sudden Dirk comes in. That's right, the feared Karaini's rebel leader who we are seeing for the first time in the final case of the game. When we talk to him, gross. He and Apollo reveal to us and Trucy that Apollo grew up in his care in Karain, and Nayuta is Dirk's actual son and Apollo's stepbrother. Add this to the Apollo backstory counter. You probably don't need me to tell you that this is a pretty crazy piece of lore to drop at the very end of the game. So how do they get around it? These fucking writers! So random and sudden new backstory aside, Dirk reveals to us that the reason why he's here is because he and the rest of the Defiant Dragons want to acquire the Founder's Orb, which is in Karain Village. A doctor in the village named Archie Buff has it and has agreed to give it to Dirk, and Dirk wants us to be his lawyer for taking ownership of it. So we agree to help him, and off we go. Okay, status update. Dr. Buff is fucking dead, and we have to investigate the scene with Emma. We sort of meet Army Buff, Archie's shut-in daughter, but she communicates with us via a drone. And the investigation gives us some good leads. I think we'll be able to solve this case. Oh, hey, I think we found our culprit. So this sketchy, grinning man is politician, can you guess what his job is? And he claims to have ownership over the Founder's Orb. For now, we talk to some other Karain residents, such as Pearl. Pearl tells us that Paul has been campaigning in the village lately, much to the dismay of the residents, and that the victim went into Mount Mitama cave with the orb. Safely assuming that the orb is probably somewhere in the cave, Apollo and Dirk venture out there. In the cave, Apollo and Dirk get pushed into a pit and have to find their way out. This segment's actually pretty gripping and exciting, and as we find a way out, we find the Founder's Orb. But unfortunately, once we get back to Karain Village, Phoenix is there and being really fucking annoying. He says that he'll be representing Paul in court in order to give him ownership of the Founder's Orb, and is just, in general, being an ass to us. In court, we find out that Paul killed Dr. Buff, and the reason why Phoenix was acting so weird and supporting him was because he and a mysterious second party were holding Maya for ransom. But luckily, we find a way to both charge Paul and save Maya. The reason why they kidnapped Maya and desperately tried to get the orb was so she could channel the founder of Karain, and with Maya dead, they wouldn't be able to channel anyone. With this plot thwarted, we take our goofy seeming but actually really fucked up culprit down. Also, there's a really sweet moment with Army, the victim's daughter, now in person. But there's still something to take care of. Maya needs to be rescued, so we make our way to Karine where we rescue Maya and find the person who worked with Paul, none other than Inga Karul Karine, the Minister of Justice and Rafa's dad. Remember him? Well, it doesn't matter because he's fucking dead. Dirk is accused of and arrested for murdering him, and it's our job to defend him. But we're not alone. Edgeworth and Rafa are here to help us. I'll talk more about her later, but Rafa losing her father and finding out about how evil he was takes a toll so huge on her that it actually turns her into a pretty likable character. Like, she goes through some serious character growth in this case. The trial following this investigation is the last one in the case, and it is crazy. The prosecutor's none other than Queen Garan, who, surprise, turns out to be just as evil as her now deceased husband, and we uncover some even more crazy shit. Nena, the old woman who aids Rafa in her animations from earlier, who I forgot to mention, turns out to be Amara, the former queen of Karine in disguise. She used to be romantically involved with Dirk, and Dirk has been dead this entire time. No, I'm serious. A little while prior to the case, when Maya first got kidnapped, Dirk went to go rescue her and was shot and killed by Inga. His last request was for Maya to channel him so he could go visit Apollo, his adopted son, one last time. Even if the whole thing seems kind of ridiculous, it's 1, explained better in the game, and 2, actually pretty emotionally impactful, even if we did not really know Dirk. So Inga killed Dirk, and Maya was no longer channeling Dirk when we found her, so the question is, who killed Inga? Well, Garan did, and we prove her guilt in court. Oh, also, Nayuta realizes that he's been working for a corrupt system and redeems himself or whatever, but that all happens in like the last hour of the game and he's still boring as fuck, so whatever. This case did a lot of things right. The overarching mystery was interesting, it let us go back to Karine Village, the whole getting trapped in a cave thing and the puzzle box segment were cool, Army was cute, Edgeworth came back gayer than ever, and I actually ended up liking Rafa to an extent. The twists were also fucking insane too, like the reveal that Dirk was dead the whole time actually threw me for a loop. But the case also fucks up pretty badly on a lot of fronts. In case you didn't notice, they pulled a Clay Terran with Dirk. He appears out of fucking nowhere to give Apollo a last minute new stupid backstory, and the game tries to force us to care about their relationship even though we are just meeting Dirk. Hell, he even ends up being dead before the events of the case. And aside from that whole thing, Phoenix was extremely annoying during the first trial, Inga randomly died after being built up to be a huge villain, the reveal that Nena was Amara is kind of ridiculous, let's be honest, and Garan was a stupid and comically evil villain. Not to mention, the case was so long, and I have mixed feelings about the ending. Oh, yeah, the ending. Apollo decides to stay in Karine as a lawyer. It mainly pissed me off. If Apollo stays in Karine for the 7th game, I will be so mad, but realistically, he'll probably just pull a Maya and come back in like the next game, so. In the end, Turnabout Revolution is just okay. It's an okay conclusion to an okay game, and I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Except we're not actually done because we still need to talk about this game's DLC case, Turnabout Time Traveler. And of course, like with Turnabout Revolution from the previous game, I won't be counting this case's score towards the final rating. So Phoenix, Athena, and Trucy are fucking around at the Right Anything agency when all of a sudden, none other than Larry Butts runs in. But he's not alone, he's joined by a woman named Ellen Wyatt, who has been accused of murdering a man by the name of, Dumbass Gloomsbury. She needs a defense attorney, and Larry brought her in hoping that we would defend her. One interesting thing I want to point out really quickly is that Larry's theme has been modernized for this game, and I like it. For the most part, I mean, on one hand, I really like how they changed it and updated it to give it a feel that's more unique to this game, but on the other hand, I definitely prefer the original. I mean, this remade version doesn't really have that goofy but also fight or flight triggering vibe to it. Anyways, some shenanigans happen. I'm gonna end it all? Dude, we're like 5 minutes into the case, and then Emma comes in to bring Ellen to the detention center for questioning. In the detention center, Ellen informs us that she was set to marry Soren Sprocket, a young man belonging to the apparently famous Sprocket family. During the reception, however, she was attacked by the victim, and as he was about to push her off the Vista deck, she made a wish upon a pendant Soren gave to her and went back to before the reception began. That can't be right, so it's time to investigate. But we're not alone, because Larry's here with he ran off to talk to a woman. But we're not alone, because Edgeworth and Maya show up. Edgeworth is leaving with Larry to question him. But we're not alone, because Maya's still here. Okay, all jokes aside, Edgeworth tells us that he'll be the lead prosecutor in this case, and Maya tells us that she'll help us investigate. The two of us run into Emma again at the crime scene, and she gives us some more background about the incident. The victim was the lead servant of the Sprocket household, and the defendant was his co-worker / the live-in maid for the family. Apparently, the family was opposed to the marriage between her and Soren. Oh, and also the murder weapon was a clock called the Timekeeper. After investigating the scene, we run into Soren himself. But aside from telling us that he thinks time travel is possible and that he's researching it, he doesn't seem very interested in talking to us. Who is interested in talking to us, however, is Pierce Nickety, the family's butler, who gives us some very important information. Soren had an older sister, Selena, who tragically died in a car accident. Pierce himself believes that Ellen killed Dumbass in self-defense. Anyways, Edgeworth, sit your ass down, we know damn well that you're a bottom. One more investigation and 2 trials later, we finally get to the bottom of the case. It all started many years ago when Selena Sprocket met her unfortunate, premature demise in a car crash. However, she didn't die instantly and she wasn't the only victim. Her brother, Soren, was critically injured as well. Pierce Nickety, who was actually a surgeon and Selena's fiancé, operated on Soren first, which Selena had requested, leading to her dying from her injuries while her brother survived. This caused Pierce to resent Soren, and on the day of his wedding with Ellen, he set out to get his revenge. Pierce had Dumbass try to kill Ellen, but unfortunately for them, Soren jumped in to help her, knocking Dumbass unconscious with the Timekeeper. Believing that he was dead, Soren and Pierce, who, in Soren's mind, had nothing to do with any of this, hid him inside of one of the large lanterns at the wedding reception. To cover up the incident, the entire Sprocket family gaslit Ellen into believing that they had traveled back in time to hold the reception again. Dumbass regained consciousness during the reception, and in a panic, Pierce bludgeoned him to death with the Timekeeper, framing Ellen in a last-ditch attempt to get back at Soren. Similarly to the last case, this one is also relatively divisive amongst Ace Attorney fans, with the vast majority of people finding it to be mediocre. I, however, thought that it was good. Sure, having to operate under the guise that time travel was real for a good percentage of the case was stupid. Ellen was kind of an annoying client, mainly due to her overly long animations. Pierce was kind of an obvious culprit due to seeming suspicious as fuck throughout the case, and Larry was super flanderized. But there was a lot to like, too. The overarching mystery was, aside from the time travel bullshit, pretty interesting. Pierce was a really cool villain, even if he was a pretty obvious one. Larry being back was awesome, even if he was flanderized, and investigating with Maya and battling Edgeworth again was great, too. Soren was also a pretty good character, and the ending of the case was really sweet. Also, I think that Ellen is the only client who's interacted with the glass in the detention center. I don't know why that's interesting to me, but it is. I don't know, I just find it cool. All in all, though, I actually like this DLC case less than the one in Dual Destinies, which is kind of surprising given how I very much prefer this game to that one. Turnabout Time Traveler gets a 7 out of 10. Now that we've covered all of the cases, let's move on to talking about the non-story elements of Spirit of Justice, the characters, art, and music. Let's start off with the characters. The returning characters, Phoenix, Apollo, Athena, Emma, Trucy, Maya, Pearl, Black Quill, Edgeworth, and Larry are a mixed bag. But let's start out with the good comebacks. Emma, Trucy, Maya, Pearl, Edgeworth, and Larry were all really nice to see again, especially Maya, who we haven't officially seen since Trials and Tribulations. No, I'm not counting the Investigations cameos. I'd say that the best comebacks were Emma, Trucy, and Edgeworth. Emma feels like she's gone through actual character progression, becoming an actual forensic investigator. Trucy has her own focus case and feels like an actual character again, instead of the one-note throwaway character she was throughout most of Dual Destinies, and facing off against Edgeworth again was really refreshing and nice. Although it was great to see Maya, Pearl, and Larry again, the big problem the three of them share is that they feel pretty flanderized. Larry's the biggest victim of this, with his hopeless idiot trait being the only one the writers really focused on, and they really liked retreading old ground with the Fae girls too. Pearl especially, because both this game and Dual Destinies have yet to convince me that she's not still an 8-year-old. Now, to talk about Black Quill and the three main characters. Black Quill's easy. He was in one case and he was an asshole in it, so he was easily the worst comeback. But as for Phoenix, Apollo, and Athena, Apollo has literally nothing to do with the overarching plot of the game up until the very last case where he has a new stupid backstory. Athena feels more like a side character than anything. Hell, her focus case is hella short and is the worst one in the game, and Phoenix is extremely relevant, despite having pretty much no emotional connection to the story. It's not like I hated seeing these three again. Well, Phoenix's role really shouldn't be as prominent as it was in the original trilogy anymore, but that's a video for another time. As for the new characters, my personal favorites were Albie because he was cute, Bonnie and Betty for the same reason, Army, also for the same reason, Dats because he was cool, even though I barely talked about him, and same with Soren. The only character I had mixed feelings on was Rafa. Like I said earlier, her character development felt really undercooked and came in a little late in the game, but she was still cute enough and her development was genuinely interesting to watch unfold. The worst new characters were Nayuta because his development sucked and he was boring and stupid, and like every character from Case 4. Moving on to the art, it's good, which is great coming from Dual Destinies. In case you haven't played that game or seen my video on it, just know that the graphics kinda suck. The models are stiff and janky, the expressions look weird and jarring, the environments are kinda bland, and the animations don't look quite right. But in this game, the graphics are much more akin to the graphics in games like The Great Ace Attorney. There's a lot of life breathed into their sprites, models, environments, and animations, and it's really refreshing to see, even as someone who prefers the classic 2D graphics. The anime cutscenes here are also even better than the ones in Dual Destinies. As for the music, I mean, it's an Ace Attorney game, the music's fantastic. The updated tracks are great, and the new tracks, especially the Karain Town theme and Nayuta's theme, which was too good for that boring fucker, are great too. I'll move on to assigning my final ratings for both the game and the Apollo Justice Trilogy in a sec, but first, there's a specific pro and some cons that I haven't talked about yet. The one pro I haven't covered is that this game, like Dual Destinies, has other outfits that the characters can wear. This was especially cool to see in this game because of the better graphics. As for the cons, okay, the pacing in this game is fucked. You spend 2 of the cases in Karain, 2 in America, and the final one in both. This is whatever until you remember that the 2 American cases are fucking filler adventures. Like I said, I liked Case 2, but it has jack shit to do with the rest of the overarching plot, and it makes it really weird. To say that it interrupts the flow of the story is an understatement, especially since you constantly shift from character to character, and the game randomly becomes about Apollo at the end. And Capcom, if you're watching, there's an easy fix to this. If having 3 main characters doing different things gets complicated, then how about you get rid of one of the main characters? How about you stop making Phoenix a main character when his story has been over for 2 games now? I'll make a video about this topic at some other time, but holy fuck, give the other 2 characters the spotlight, Jesus. That's pretty much all I have to say about Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice, so now it's time to assign a rating to both this game and the Apollo Justice Trilogy as a whole. I'd give Spirit of Justice a 6 out of 10. It's above average, making it better than Dual Destinies, but it's still not great. And because of all the issues I mentioned earlier, it's one of the less good Ace Attorney games. As for the Apollo Justice Trilogy, I'm giving it the same rating. It started out strong with the titular first game, but then it was followed up by easily the worst game in the series, then concluded with this game in a serviceable but still underwhelming way. One of my biggest criticisms of the Apollo Justice Trilogy is its misleading title. Sure, it's called the Apollo Justice Trilogy, but it is barely about Apollo. Something I didn't mention about this game and Dual Destinies is that they both contain Phoenix Wright in the title, not Apollo Justice. That alone perfectly encapsulates how this trilogy views him. He's a character that just kinda takes a backseat to the main plot. He's relevant at times, sure, but only when he's forced to. Even the first game, which was easily the best one in this trilogy, didn't even give him a backstory. The Apollo Justice Trilogy is good, but compared to the original trilogy, the Great Ace Attorney games, and the Investigations collection, it's easily the weak link of the franchise, and I'm gonna have to give it a 6 out of 10. But with all of that said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please like, share, and especially subscribe. This video took a lot of work, and it really helps me out. Also, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this game, and let me know if you want to see me talk about the Great Ace Attorney, the Investigations games, and more in the comments below. I hope to see you in the next one, but until then, bye!